Thank you.
We are live. Well, hello and happy Halloween, one and all, and welcome to another edition of the Breakfast Club JamBOOree. Or I was going to go JamBOOree, but I thought that was perhaps a little too pretentious, so I just left it with the boot. How y'all doing?
Good.
Hanging in there. Been really busy.
Yeah.
Cool. I know that the president and Biden are up your way tonight.
Yep. They've been actually Trump has had a lot of rallies
to
here.
get into the glow of the former president.
Yep, that's right. They've been like really pushing it here. Trump has had I don't know how many rallies here. He's had so many of them, and it's also bad too. Well, it's also been bad, and it doesn't help that now the COVID cases have actually risen here in Michigan. So they put out some new things related to new regulations related to what restaurants can do, and one of them, and I put it in the host chat in Twitter, is the restaurant regulations where they're going to take names now starting Monday, so that way they can do contact tracing. So I know a lot of people are going to have an issue with it. I kind of do, because knowing how I've had ID theft before. My concern is are they going to guarantee that it's only going to the health department and the privacy, and is it going to be actually what it should be?
Can I interrupt? I'm sorry, Angel Rider.
Sure.
I just wanted to really quickly draw everybody's attention to Serious Mind.
Oh, that's right.
Happy birthday, Joe.
Oh, I'm glad your parents fucked.
I love that line, because that's what you did with me when we did when I had it for my birthday. Great line.
Hello, welcome to the people in the chat, and those of you who are watching but choose not to chat, hello to you as well. Right, so yeah, Sue, you were saying about the way things are going up there in Michigan.
Yes.
I was kind of surprised that Obama and Biden chose to go to Flint, Michigan, because of Obama's drinking the water stunt, and just before. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, brother, you got a lot of balls going back to that town after that, really.
True, very true.
I saw the footage of him just like that, but it cut off real fast, and I'm wondering if the crowd started shouting "chug, chug, chug," because they should have. If I'd been there, I would have.
You hear Michael Moore was talking about this recently. He was saying that he of course was trying to be diplomatic and not say names, but somebody from Biden's camp had called him asking about what Biden needed to do, and he told him that Biden needed to be there months ago to show up and address Flint's water crisis. So it sounds like they're taking Michael Moore up on his advice, but probably pretty late in the game, and that's in part because according to Moore, the black vote hasn't been as strong in Michigan as it has been other places. And I mean, I can only imagine how people feel, having been abandoned for 6 years now.
Oh yeah, they've been. Well, it actually all started with the governor before Gretchen Whitmer came in, Rick Snyder, right. And the story, basically, the backstory is they changed the water system, but when they did, they forgot to put an element in there that would clean the water, and that's how it happened. So they went from something statewide to almost locally. Nobody knew about it until they found all these people were getting sick, and they couldn't figure out why. And then when they did the investigation, it's like, oops. Yeah, you're done.
It was the contaminated water in the bay, basically.
Yeah.
The contaminated water, actually, what it did was it broke down the metals in the pipe.
Yep,
right.
That's correct.
At least glad.
Yep, that's right. That's right. So it's
in the last year or so, I've developed a taste for altruism. And believe me, one of the reasons I want my current animation project to become successful and a huge franchise is to fucking give away some money. But like I really only care about making the art, and I don't care about being rich. If I end up accidentally rich, believe me, there's a lot of places that are hurting that won't be anymore, and it'll be my fault that they aren't.
That's cool. How rich do you have to be before you start offloading your wealth, Kate?
Well, once I build my dream home and buy a DeLorean, there you go.
But is the DeLorean upgraded to have a Mr. Fusion on it? That's the question.
Well, I mean, yeah, obviously. But I'm much more concerned about the wheels that let you fly. That's the part I care about.
So, sorry,
I think they should bring blimps back in a major way.
I don't know. I think that if they tried to, a lot of people would start shouting Hindenburg and would tell us it's too dangerous.
But that was the thing. I used to love seeing the blimp fly over my house as a kid because I'd see that once in a while, and I'm just like, that is like the coolest thing ever. It's better than an airplane.
I'm not so sure that the Hindenburg is recent enough in the memory to make much of a difference. I mean, everybody knows it happened, but everybody knows the Titanic sank and people still go on cruise ships. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. Well, plus the fact that more people, I think, are actually aware of the Goodyear blimp than the Hindenburg. So,
Yeah.
Actually, that's a good point. I can't remember the last time I even thought about the Goodyear blimp.
But they're as I recall, the energy to weight ratio is fairly favorable, so it wouldn't be a bad idea.
I just think
me and my gal were talking about having hotels in the air on the blimp, and just like, you leave in Los Angeles or whatever, and you go to Las Vegas or you go to Tahoe or whatever, and it's like the whole hotel in the air, like true Airbnb,
I don't know. I mean, I think the comparison of Titanic to Hindenburg might be a little off, just because I think a lot of people look at water and say, heck, I can swim, but they look at something up in the air and go, I can't fly.
Yeah, no one's jumping out of the sky in a big hurry.
There's a point there that, we built an awful lot more ships than we built airships. And so, just in comparison to the number of vehicles that were ever in service, there's probably billions of ships at this point, and not
not billions, millions maybe.
No, I mean, if you include all of history, it's probably it's a good number. It's
a large number of ships, yes, but I doubt it's the billions, but
yeah, possibly. If you include canoes.
Remember, hyperbole is bad.
Yeah, okay.
No, hyperbole is the worst. There is nothing.
Haven't I told you a million times not to exaggerate?
Yeah, I mean, look, like during World War II, I remember there was a period there where if you count small literal ships, and I mean littoral, not littoral, we built like 64,000 ships in about a year. So, but even there, that's I think the U.S. is probably in the maybe low tens of millions of ships in the history of the country.
Okay.
Man, that's just hard to picture, but wow.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, when you look at how much stuff was built during World War II, it's pretty astounding. I mean, like between us and the Soviets, we built slightly less than them as far as tanks go. They built like 105,000, and we built like 102,000 tanks during World War II.
See, what's crazy is you hear about the aluminum scrap drives they used to do, and then you look at how people are reacting to COVID, and it's like, I'm glad World War II happened then.
Oh God, yeah, we'd be a disaster. Like no one's used to making a sacrifice for their fellow country person.
Yeah, even being asked to make a sacrifice is like a demand for communism or something.
Well, and that's something my friend Pete, who I saw today, one of the things he tends to be right, more on the right wing, but one of the reasons why he detested George W. Bush is because when 9/11 happened and here was a time to rally America together, instead of asking Americans to sacrifice and pull together and defeat the enemy and all that, was go shopping, help the economy, because that's all the right wing ever thinks about is rich people's pocketbooks.
Well, but I mean, even then, like if someone told us now, go shopping, help the economy with UBI, like we'd benefit and the corporations would benefit. It'd just be a slightly slower burn.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just now even the idea of helping your fellow citizens like anathema, like, oh, you're a communist. Of course, they don't know what the word means, but.
And the weird part is how much of that you get from Christians. The people who are supposed to be generous.
Yeah, they're commanded to do so, and Jesus says, that what you do for the least of my brethren, you do for me, and to give, if you're, if your brother asks you for the shirt off your back, you give him your cloak as well, and
Yeah, but Joe, you're taking all of that out of context.
It's metaphorical.
Well, and
Yeah, but Joe, you're taking all of that out of context.
It's metaphorical.
Where did that echo come from?
Watching this on YouTube?
Oh, right.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
It's
an allegory.
People who claim to be the most Christian oriented are seem like be like the least Christ-like people I can possibly imagine.
Yeah, well, there's study that kind of demonstrates that, where people who grow up with very strong faith or faith-based traditions tend to be more selfish, tend to be less giving, tend to have a higher incident of crime. It's kind of one of the great ironies of religion, that basically everything that it stands for, it tends to produce the opposite outcome.
Lots of projection.
Yeah, IMAX has nothing on Christians.
What's this?
I said IMAX has nothing on Christians for projection.
Yeah, Johnny Contrap. Yeah, there are people on the left who are rich. We're not against people getting rich. It's a matter of people on the left who are rich are okay with being taxed to, basically pay back to the society that will enable them to become rich. And that's the big difference.
Yeah, I'm sure there are some, but it seems more common for right-wing rich people to seek money for its own sake, as its own end. Like, money becomes a way to just keep score against other rich people, like it's some sort of competition. That seems to be the way they treat it. And never mind that it's like hoarding resources that people actually need just a smidge.
Right. If people on the left tend to be more into money as a means to an end.
Yeah.
So, just as an aside and slightly changing the subject, I mean, hands up everybody who has an impending sense of doom.
Oh, I always do, but especially now. But a friend of mine who's he's got a psychological degree, and it's not Michael, but he's another friend of mine who's got a psychological degree. Basically said, look, all the things you're worried about, there's valid reasons to have those concerns, but there's nothing you can do about it, so don't sweat it so much. And I'm like, well, I'm trying, but knowing all these things, because here's the thing, based on the turnout we have already, and based on the state-by-state polls, the ones that are reasonably rated, not the garbage polls like SurveyMonkey and stuff like that. And if everyone who has a desire, interest in voting this time, and the ability to do so, if they actually do vote and their votes actually get counted, then Trump should lose in a humiliating defeat. However, obviously, one, people might not show, two, the votes, we know that the Republicans are doing everything they can to suppress the vote, and anyone out there in the audience who thinks that's not true. There's already been 2 cases that have already gone to the Supreme Court where they try to basically terminate the counting of mail-in votes prematurely. So don't say that they're not, because they're literally doing it. And we don't know what other monkey shines they have. There's been talk that the Trump lawyers have actually been looking into the whole idea that states can basically, the legislation of the states can invalidate the voting and just decide to apportion their electors based on what the state legislature wants to do, which apparently, according to legal, which scared the fuck out of me, may actually be legal. But as long as, and we also don't know what kind of violence that right-wing extremist may be up to, considering that today they tried to drive a Biden campaign bus off the fucking road.
I was just going to bring that up.
So,
Yeah.
you know,
The Proud Boys have flat out said if Trump loses, they're going to start a civil war. I mean, they've just declared that like a week or 3 ago.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
I expect that there will be violence. Don't expect that they will get into the full sort of civil war declaration that they're claiming. And the reason is it's not that dissimilar from when everybody every election cycle says I'm moving to Canada if X candidate wins, and Canada doesn't have a substantially larger population now, you know, than after the last election. Or, you know, the 2 terms of Obama when Republicans said they'd run to Canada if we got socialized medicine. So we're on some level, the large percentage of them is just full of bluster. That doesn't mean that there's be violence. There will absolutely be a spike in violence. We'll see
The problem is, well, I agree with everything you just said. The problem is that violence has a tendency to escalate. And so if it ignites, it's on everybody to de-escalate, you know, in any way we can.
well, is it though? I mean, I have to admit, maybe it's horrible of me, but I think that it might almost be nice to have everything get shaken up. I mean, granted, that sounds horrible, but I mean, like I would not object to the idea of a few states seceding.
I mean, there's precedent for the idea. I don't remember exactly where I heard it. It might have even been Legal Eagle, Serious Mind mentioned, talking about how one of the premises was that the Constitution of the United States would be sort of readdressed every few years and sort of updated. I really should go look back into what that stems from. But while I'm not super excited about any violence that is almost certainly definitely going to happen, I am interested in this idea of we get into a traditional mindset where things are the way they are because they've always been this way, or there's continuity, and that continuity isn't necessary. We can decide that this is a good turning point in our history to look at everything that we've done and decide there are some things that we can wipe away, partly, you know, tabula rasa, and start over. And, you know, that does mean throwing out precedents and all kinds of things related to the Supreme Court. But, like, if there's an opportunity for the United States to go, let's not base our country in, you know, 1700s thinking, that would be wonderful. How likely we are to have such a concrete turning point as that, where we actually do sort of, you know, a soft reboot of America, that's a pretty unlikely situation. More likely now than it's been in a long time.
Yeah, more likely now. I was just going to get there. You talked about, like, you know, that continuity and tradition and breaking it. Well, the continuity has been broken. Like this election cycle and the threat of violence and everything else is much higher for this election than ever before. Not only because of the heightened tensions and everything else, but there's a lot of people that aren't working. Like over the years, there's been like disasters or emergencies and all kinds of things. And people get up in the morning and they go to work. And they do it every day, no matter what's going on around them. The world is on fire and they get up and they go to work. Why? Because they have to pay the bills. People aren't working now, which means they have time for violence. They have time to take to the streets. They have time to do all kinds of stuff that they didn't really have before. And a lot of them, are driving pickup trucks with Trump flags, running buses off the road. So that adds to a lot of what's happening now. It's the fact that these guys have more time to, you know, wage their revolution.
I want to address something that's in the chat. So Albie Singer says, can you imagine if Republicans started burning targets, tried packing the Supreme Court, threatened with impeachment? Yeah, they've done that already. past the Supreme Court, you mean like not giving a nominee a hearing in 9 months, but then ramming one through in 30 days?
I suspect that's irony, that comment. I'm just saying.
I hope so, because otherwise it's rather ignorant. So, as far as burning targets, I mean, you mean like trying to kidnap 2 governors because you don't like their and running campaign buses off the road? I mean, I really hope. I mean, you might
pointing
be
rifles at officers, taking over the Malheur National.
Thank you. Yeah. So Antifa people broke a few windows and punched a couple dudes, but somehow that's what we got to worry about, and not the heavily armed men who took over the Michigan State House, not the people who planned to kidnap and execute governors. I mean, it's so fucking stupid. It's so ridiculous. And that's what I'm fed up with the most. Because like some people have made the point, like no matter what happens Tuesday, Trump will eventually be gone. He can't live forever. So eventually he will be gone. But it's what's left over when everything is done.
That's something I keep pointing out to people, kept pointing out through the whole nomination process, is that it's not just about Trump, it's about what the next president's going to do in office. But so many people seem to have this mental and, let's face it, emotional image of, we vote Trump out, Biden's in and everything's okay.
No, I don't have that image at all.
I'm not talking about you guys. I'm not talking about you guys.
No, but I disagree. I disagree. I mean, I see a lot on social media about, yes, we have to get rid of Trump and get Biden in, and then we have to hold him to it. Well, then we have to push him.
See, the thing,
I will say this.
I've had a slightly different experience, though. I mean, I've had a lot of times where I've said to people, we have to consider what the presidents will do when he's in office. And people have told me to shut up, that it's all about Trump, 100% about getting rid of Trump. I've even had people tell me that they would rather have Hitler than Trump. And I'm sitting there going, wow, you guys can't see past the tip of your own nose, can you?
Here's why. If you get rid of Trump and you replace him with almost anybody, you still have a functioning country. If you don't get rid of Trump, there's a good chance you'll no longer have a functioning democracy, a functioning country. So number one priority above everything else is get him out. Everything else comes secondary. Yes, it's important to worry about the things that the next president may or may not do when they get in. But the most important thing is to get Trump out.
100% disagree. 100% disagree, and I'll explain why. Because Biden won't do dick when it comes to the environment. He's not going to adopt the Green New Deal. He's not going to give us the green energy we need, and not in the amount of time. Because he wants to say 2050. If you look at Green New Deal, it says clean energy by 2030. And so Biden is going to not do enough on the environment. It'll end up killing us all, Trump or no Trump.
What good does knowing that do you? If we're living in a fascist regime where you don't have freedom to even care about the environment, what good does knowing that do you?
You're dead either way.
What?
I'm saying if Biden doesn't do what he needs to do on the environment and we're all screwed, we're going to get killed by the environment before 2050, probably. I mean, we're already at a very critical tipping point. We have been for ages. And so if whether it's Trump or whether it's Biden, we need to do stuff on the environment now, because we're about to hit a point of no return.
Much better chance of persuading.
But here's the problem with that, is because Biden doesn't have to listen to us once he's in office, because he doesn't need our votes. He's never getting a second term. He's going to govern like a lame duck. People kept saying we can push him left once he's elected. No, we fucking can't.
I totally hear where you're coming from, but at the same time, maybe not. Maybe he'll want to work on the environment because it's an existential threat to our species, and he wants to do something to create a legacy.
He doesn't believe that.
One term that he's going to get.
Based on everything you said, he doesn't believe that it's the existential threat it is. He thinks he can have time to dilly-dally.
I think he thinks he's going to use environmental issues to get a lot of new jobs going. I think that's where he's coming from. And as far as I'm concerned, if we're working in that direction and it gets people to work, cool.
I want to address something. I want to address something really quick that's in the chat that I see all the time that drives me up the wall. LOL, we were supposed to be a republic anyways. I'm not sure if See, this drives me nuts because people don't understand. We are a representative democracy, which is a form of a republic. We are a constitutional republic and a representative democracy. So you can't say, well, we're not a democracy, we're a republic. We're both.
All a republic really means is that you don't have a monarch. That's all it really means, you know?
But still, it's the environment. It's all about the environment. Biden's going to kill us because he won't do enough on it soon enough. That's all there is to it.
This is, I'm going to back Kate on this to a large extent. Now, I'm not quite, I mean, I did end up voting for Biden. I didn't like it. I would have preferred to vote for Howie Hawkins and the Greens. But, you know, I live in Oregon. It's a very safe, deep blue state. That said, there is something valuable in the optics of having a landslide victory, a repudiation of Trump that is so concrete, clear, that no one who wants to foment the type of politics as him feels as empowered to do so. That doesn't mean they won't. We already know that like Patriot Front and these other right-wing groups are kind of operating with the idea of a post-Trump era. They already know Trump is, as a figurehead, is going, so they're prepared for that sort of after Trump world. Trump's politics will definitely continue on, but it would be wonderful if it was somewhat marginalized. That said, and this is where I fully back up Kate, Biden has said he's on board for the Green New Deal, but he doesn't mean the same thing that AOC, you know, his Green New Deal is different. And he's, just a moment, he's absolutely not going to work very hard on the economy. He has no incentive to do so. In that sense, my position is that once Trump is out of office, we focus on primarying every conservative Democrat. We get a full progressive sweep into both the House and the Senate.
I agree with that.
More impossible for Biden to be a conservative. That doesn't mean we can push Biden. It means that we have to push every more local representative and senator that we possibly
can. And the important part there is that if the Democrats in the House and the Senate pass progressive pro-Green New Deal bills, he's not going to veto them. So that's the important part. So it doesn't. So he's not as relevant if the people in the House and the Senate do the right thing.
Okay, number one, Biden's website says he'll do the Green New Deal, but when he was on the debate stage, he said no. So I don't even know. I'm just saying I don't know which to believe is what I'm saying.
Talking about the people in the House and the
Senate. Actually, I'm still responding to something someone else said because I've been champing at the bit at this one. So.
Biden's stance on the Green New Deal. Biden's stance on the Green New Deal. Why it says that on his website, and then in the debate he said no, it's because he has his own Green New Deal type thing in the framework of the Green New Deal. It's not the same. It's not as good.
Something else then.
Not as comprehensive. It's watered down. He pretty much watered down the Green New Deal to try to get more conservatives to go along with him.
Which is so fucking stupid because there are so many people who refuse to vote simply because no one represents them. And so, I mean, you know, or they vote third party because they feel like the Democrats don't represent them. And Biden's going after fucking conservatives. This makes the opposite of sense. The opposite of sense. And more than that, though, I mean, again, we are in a time crunch with the environment. If anybody starts playing shenanigans and does not let us start moving towards green energy a hell of a lot faster than 2050, we're dead. That's all there's to it. We're dead. And a lot of people are going, well, that's not the most important thing, you silly Muppet. We have to go after fill in the blank. I'm like, really? So the planet is not that important? Having breathable air is not that important? Being able to grow crops is not that important? And people are like, shut up, you freaking Trump supporter. And I'm like, really? I'm going way ass liberal, and you say I support Trump? Really? That makes perfect sense. People have let go of all logic. It's crazy.
My hair is as on fire as Kate's when it comes to the environment. It's why I have no hair. It all burned away.
That's global warming for you.
That is. I absolutely agree with the substance of everything Kate is saying. And the only place that I see a distinction, because again, I don't believe in electoralism as a primary way of changing things or altering the course of history. But I do think that there is value in the optics. A large movement, a movement where Trump loses by a huge margin, that shows a place that people are at that the politicians have to eventually follow. And in almost all of our history, politicians are behind the people. They are not leading us. We are leading them. And we will have to absolutely be out in the streets. We will have to be making ourselves heard constantly. And almost as actually more under Biden, because Trump was never going to listen to protesters.
Right.
Well, neither is Biden, though.
Biden
flat out told people you should vote for Trump when they disagreed with him. Biden's not listening to anybody.
It's true. And my whole point is to do everything we can to make Biden irrelevant, to make him the back of the line where he's the caboose. He's got to be dragged along behind us, because he's not going to be here when the planet really collapses.
Right. So like you had said about our leaders don't lead, they're always behind us, and that's true. That's true, because we don't have leaders. That's one of the things another one that drives me crazy, that I'm not saying you personally, or just I hear people say about our leaders. We don't have leaders, we have representatives.
We're supposed to.
Yeah, we're supposed to. That's the idea. We don't have leaders. So,
speaking colloquially, the way humans operate, the way humans attach themselves to individuals who, they follow. I mean, our entire culture is set up around the idea of leaders and followers. So
it's true. And I mean, at the risk of sounding like Kate,
hey.
That's a risk of sounding like Kate. That is one of the things, like, when people talk about our leaders, that drives me crazy, because words have meanings. And if you use the word leader when talking about our representatives too often, people begin to believe that they're supposed to be leaders. It's not just a colloquial thing. They believe they're electing these people to lead, but that's not what we're electing them to do. We're electing them to represent.
Right.
But
one thing that I worry about, and I worry about it a lot, is that if Biden wins in a landslide, that the DNC will learn all the wrong lessons, that they'll take it as vindication. Possibly. And I'm terrified of that, because you say that the leaders are behind us, and I agree, but they're going to stay a lot further behind us if Biden thoroughly curb stomps Trump. So I mean, we'll just keep seeing repeats of 2016 and 2020 for the rest of our lives if we don't give the Democrats a bloody nose.
Believe me, I understand, but I am going to have to repeat Noam Chomsky's recent article when he was talking. No, I know, because I'm on both sides of this. Believe me, I am I understand both sides of this, and I am more on, Brianna Joy Gray's side of this, debate, in that she was absolutely right that you set up a moral hazard that the Democrats will continue to operate as if they have a moral majority as a right-wing centrist party. If you continue to give them, and that's not what I'm suggesting we do. I'm suggesting that we make sure that everybody who Biden relies on to make his government work be as progressive as possible, that we work on eliminating Biden's power. And honestly, I've never been pro executive power in the first place. I want our executive to be more or less a communicator rather than a lawmaker. And
well, they're not lawmakers. So now the president's not supposed to.
I mean, I'm talking about executive orders and things like that. We've traveled really far down the path of a unitary executive, and it's very concerning to me, always has been. Biden will go into office with more power than any president has ever had, because every single president grabs more power once.
That's exactly right.
And so anything we can do to make it so that what Biden wants is not very important to what actually happens.
Show him the guillotine with his name on it.
So Brock says, I'm looking at 7 people who are going to be very disappointed on Tuesday. Odds are, no matter how the election turns out, most of these 7 people will probably still be disappointed. So, I mean, so that's a bet that you're going to win no matter what. So
every scenario where I'm not disappointed probably requires supernatural intervention at this point.
I've been operating under the premise that Trump wins this election right up until maybe the last 2 days. I think I've said that in previous live streams that I don't want to get to the point where I believe Trump loses, because that's more dangerous than assuming the other direction. And I've finally sort of allowed myself to think that maybe Biden wins this, because the polls are really indicating, even if you handicap Biden, even if I don't know if anybody watches Question Time is the YouTube channel. Fantastic YouTube channel that does political analysis, has done political analysis on all these recent debates. But even if you handicap Biden so that he has like the poll disadvantage that Clinton had, he still wins. Even if you give Trump an unreasonable advantage, it's still incredibly difficult for him to win. He's got a 1% chance of winning the popular vote, and only about an 11% chance of winning the electoral college. Those are very good odds in favor of Biden, and there's good odds in favor of a sweep. But it's still very important to gird yourselves and assume that we have 4 more years of Trump, and we have to keep fighting. And even if Trump loses, we have to keep fighting like his entire ideology is still in office.
Well, there's guys who you see basically these yahoos who want some kind of violent conflict. They're itching for it. They're prepared. They're ready. They're trained. Blah blah blah. They're going to want their pound of flesh no matter which guy wins. And I'm not really sure how to contend with that, how to confront that, because Trump is obviously going to blame the other side for whatever happens. And he's still going to be president for I don't know how many days it is, like 100 days or whatever. It's not a short period of time between election day and inauguration day. It's enough time for Trump to do significant damage, and for his people who won't settle for a defeat to do significant damage. So what do you think the shape of that looks like?
Well, first, let's all place bets on how long it takes for Trump to say Biden's bus tried to push Trump supporters off the road.
Oh, he probably already has.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and the thing is that, I mean, I am concerned about that, Paul, and I have been for quite some time. Because in a few ways. One, as I already said, we already have very good information that Trump's team is already looking to challenge in court everywhere, every possible way, even ways that don't make any sense. Because they're just gonna do everything, and he wants to create the air that he's been ripped off, no matter how badly. And I don't put it past him to basically try to hamstring the future Biden administration, and just he's going to put out we know he's going to put out a bunch of executive orders, and he's going to do as much sandbagging as he can. And he's going to try to do as much damage. I mean, he's very and you're a Babylon 5 fan. What did President Clark do at the end? He's the best grid on Earth.
So where's our Vorlons then? Where's our Vorlons then?
Yeah, hell yeah.
We need some Minbari on our side, damn it.
The Vorlons were already gone by then.
Yeah, I know, but still, I mean, I'm just saying, is we need superior aliens to help us out right now.
I think we've had too much foreign intervention in our elections already.
Well, that's the one thing that really worries me. If Trump does win and he does go full authoritarian, as many of us feel that he will, that who comes and saves us? At least the Europeans, they had us, and they had the Brits and the Australians and various countries that were on our side. But who saves us?
Well, suppose for a moment that Trump decides to refuse to leave. Suppose he says, no, I'm king/emperor, whatever now. He says that. And I mean, I'm hoping that we get to watch the Secret Service drag him out kicking and screaming. I mean, yeah. I will stock up, like when Biden wins, and if Trump starts sounding off about it, I'm buying a shit ton of popcorn, because this is going to be so much fun to watch. I'm just saying.
The only thing I would prefer to seeing him getting dragged out of the White House in chains is to just watch him do one of his things and literally just face plant, just straight down. Just, I mean, is that wrong?
No, it's not.
I'm just picturing Gerald Ford now.
Anybody who has said as a president, said so many things attacking people on personal level, their looks, their appearance, their children, he does everything to wish harm on people. And so I'm at the point where it's no longer wrong to wish ill upon him, because it's as much ill as you could wish on him, you still won't come close to the ill that he's wished on other people.
Joe, it's always wrong to wish ill on someone, but it's not wrong to laugh when it happens. It's wrong to wish for it, though. Okay, there's a fine line, bruv.
Is it though? I mean, really, like. I hate to go all Godwin's Law here, but I could seriously get behind wishing harm upon Hitler if he was still around.
There you go.
Yeah, I totally understand the point you're making. Yeah. But,
of course, he did it to himself, so, hey. But either way.
What was it? I don't remember who the comedian was that he said, well, who was worse, one guy or Hitler? And he said the other person, because at least Hitler killed Hitler.
And it was like, well, I think if we're telling Hitler jokes, favorite has got to be, I think it's Mitch Hedberg who goes, I don't want to kill Hitler. That guy is really good at killing time travelers.
Well, you know why time travel would kill you? I'm sure I've mentioned it before, but in April 6, 1955, the Earth was way the hell over there. So look, I time traveled, and now I'm in the middle of hard vacuum. So, there's that. But
there's not time travel, right? Because if there was time travel, they'd be showing up this weekend to stop what's about to happen from happening.
Well, I've come to the position that if time travel is possible, which I don't think it is, but if it were possible, that whatever impact in the past time travelers had, that's what we're already aware of. So it's kind of like, again, like the Babylon 5 model. So if you go back in time to do stuff, you've already done it. You're just fulfilling what you're already done. And no matter, and whatever you knew then. So it's not going to change, because you've already done that with the knowledge of whatever you have.
So is it actually possible to crush a can on your head? I've seen people do it. I can't. I have to stomp it so hard to make it collapse. I just can't.
Just don't start with a Red Bull.
Well, I think the secret is you have to actually squeeze in on the sides where no one's noticed.
That's cheating.
Oh, absolutely. Also,
the Red Bull can is structurally stronger than a normal can because
Well,
the
okay.
filament is smaller.
My point is, I've never been able to. Anyway,
If I can speak to the mandate that Kate says that somebody might feel if they got elected overwhelmingly, there is something that counters that in that right now in Colorado, more unaffiliated voters have returned their ballot than Democrats or Republicans.
I was an unaffiliated voter for this election.
So if
I don't
Biden gets this overwhelming vote in Colorado, most of them are people who won't register as Democrats because they have reasons.
I don't think the Democrats would see that though as giving them some kind of like a mandate or like an okay that the party remains,
I think that's
kind
exactly
of
what
centrist.
they'll do.
I don't.
After
I don't
2016, you would have thought they would have learned that the standard, like neo-lib, new Democrat types like Hillary were not the right choice. But apparently they didn't learn that lesson because this time around they insisted on the same kind of person instead of going with Bernie like they oughta.
Okay, yeah. Well, let me clarify. I'm not saying that the Democrats aren't going to get to the other side of this election and think like, see, the people gave us a thumbs up for being centrist. I'm saying that the unaffiliated voters aren't going to give them that feeling. I know because running for office and looking at the numbers, we see here there's a lot of unaffiliated or independents that are voting, almost as many as there are Democrats. And nobody in the party on the local level, at the county level, is thinking, "Oh, see, they like us. They're coming out." The feeling is that they're desperate.
Okay, let me clarify real quick. When I said the Democrats, I kind of meant the DNC, the establishment. Those people are the ones that are going to take Biden getting elected as a mandate for centrism.
I think there's a difference.
Not the voters.
What the DNC or the establishment understands when looking at their numbers and what they will say as part of their narrative. And
Absolutely.
That's what we're seeing. I think the DNC may learn or see the lesson, but then they will craft a narrative that tells everybody why they don't have to learn the lesson.
Right.
I don't think the DNC is going to learn the lesson, Jack, until 2022. And when you just suggested needs to happen, it happens in a greater way, because it was already happening in 2018. It's happening to a lesser degree this time around. But I think this time around, if Joe Biden wins in 2022, there's going to be massive groundswell of Justice Democrats and our revolution people and trying to kick some more establishment Democrats off their seats. And quite frankly, like Deb said in a chat a minute ago, it's time for Pelosi to go. Even if you Pelosi and consider her to be a talented politician, she's already 80 or whatever.
Right.
And it's time to move aside and let another generation come up, people whose lives are going to be affected by the policies they create. No offense, but when you're 80, it's time to retire from politics and let other people do it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I
mean, politics just
stinks. Should there be a maximum age that you can't be elected past for high office?
Well, here's the other thing too, Paul. I mean, basically, when it comes down to it, is the demographics are shifting anyhow. So the Democratic Party, whether the people in charge right now want to or not, the demographics are shifting to the left. So basically, and so that's why I'm not concerned about that shift happening. I know it will, because they're going to chase the votes as that demographic starts voting more. For instance, you've all heard me, dish on millennials and Zoomers, but like in several states, the early voting from young people is like order of magnitude or more. In some cases, 20 times as much at the same point. So if young people are actually showing up in large numbers for the first time ever, then that's going to shift things. And that means if those same people that got active this time, if they remain active in 2022, they're going to vote for a more progressive slate of electors or people and representatives. So
there were some statistics I saw that were describing people going out to vote. And it sort of went along lines that we've seen before, but it's also lines that bug the crap out of me. Because apparently a lot of the younger folks did not turn out for the nomination, but they are turning out for the general. And then, and also, like 2022 is midterms. There's no presidential election. And the fact is, people will usually turn out for the presidential elections simply because it's quote unquote sexier, it's cooler, it's more thrilling to vote for the president, and the down ballot shit mostly doesn't matter to people. So I'm not super confident about people turning out to vote for anything other than a general election.
Normally,
by the same token, like a lot of people, when they heard I would not be voting for Biden or Trump, because I did vote green, were like, fine, but vote like, down ballot. Down ballot races matter. And I'm like, sure, they totally do. But one of the most amusing things that I saw was there were two candidates here in San Diego whose policies were almost exactly the same. So the one I chose to vote for was, okay, there's the white dude. Here's the Hispanic lesbian whose last name is half of an 80s band. I'm voting her. Because if they're both exactly the same, really, politically, vote for the one whose last name is Duran.
No, that I know that makes sense. I would vote for somebody who's in the marginalized. Again, all of the things being equal, absolutely, because representation. But see, the thing is, what I'm talking about though is that the indication are that unlike last time, where younger people voted, only 35% of the eligible voters who were like in the basically in the millennials, and I don't think the Zoomers were able to vote last time, but only 35% of them voted. If the indications are now that they're actually going to vote in similar numbers to everybody else, and we're talking 55, 65%, that can't be ignored. And no politician on either side of the political fence is going to ignore that. Basically, right now, people ignore young people because every politician in the past who is dependent on young people to come out has been sorely, disappointed in both the primary and in the general. But if 55% of the people who come out 55% of people, 18 to 29 and 29 to 40 come out, they will not be ignored. And for instance, if they come out in the primaries again, they only have to come out at the same percentages as everybody else, which is about 15% in the primary. They're the biggest voting bloc right now, so they will get their way.
Well, but that's when we needed them, was at the primary this year. And they didn't fucking do it, and I'm pissed off at them. Because if they'd gotten out to vote, we'd have Bernie as the nominee. And I'm sitting there like, yeah, I'm almost 45. Doesn't look it, but I'm almost 45, and I'm getting to a point where I'm like, you fucking kids, do it. You have responsibilities.
You and I are in agreement on this, and that's what I was saying back then. I was like, oh, you can get all as mad as you want at the DNC for whatever reason you want, but if those young people who wanted change and had the power to vote for change and didn't come out, I'm like, hey, they got to at least take some of the culpability that they didn't get off their asses and vote.
I have to say that as a very online person, I am seeing a shift in every platform that I've never seen in my life. There is a massive movement of younger people towards both electoralism, which surprises me, and to very left-wing candidates, farther left than I've ever seen. And I mean, I ditched my entire high school career to hang out at the Red and Black Cafe. I've known communists. I have never seen as many people who are consuming theory, putting out videos, talking on Twitter or Instagram. It's a very different thing. And, in the entire time I've been aware of politics, I've never seen this kind of youth interest in politics. And
I think it's natural because there's been a political surge to the right. I mean, it's been creeping for my whole adult life, but there's been this surge to the right, and I think that creates an equal and opposite effect on the left.
I am actually wondering if much of that surge isn't for the same reason, and I'll sort of, in very brief, describe my theory here. What I witnessed in 2013, 2014, 2015 was this massive move. What the establishment said was a massive move to the right. Now, it ultimately was a move to the right by 2016 and 17 and 18. But initially, the JW movement, that kind of thing, was coming from this place of people whose material conditions were really shitty, and the Democratic Party and the supposed left had not served them in their entire lifetime. You're talking about mostly millennials and early Zoomers. And
post-Occupy.
Yeah, post-Occupy. And you saw all these people who had no future, had a ton of debt, had no careers, had, difficulty getting through college, were very concerned about climate change, and sick of what they saw as PC culture being an expression of the liberal establishment talking about things that didn't actually matter in their lives. Now, it does matter to a lot of people. I'm not, discounting marginalized communities at all, but the sense that the Democrats would rather talk about literally anything else than what people's futures actually looked like, that pissed a lot of young people off. And they moved what looked like to the right. They moved in this anti-SJW direction. Some of them then got swung further. And by the time Trump was elected and the first 2 years of Trump's administration, you saw a lot of young people move all the way into the alt-right, where they were fully exploring that territory. And in some ways, there's a pendulum effect. Some of them have swung back. But I would say that the majority, what is happening is the anti-SJW sort of movement was mostly a left-wing movement. They were mostly left-wing populists looking for somebody who would talk about what their future looked like. When are we going to address these enormous, massive, concerns that are coming down the pike? And Bernie spoke to them, but they weren't quite there yet. And I really think that the shift, like Bernie actually losing the primaries, may have been a trigger event. There's this sort of sense that everything could get better, but like there wasn't quite enough investment. And then when Bernie loses the primary, there is this change that I observed online where I really feel like there was a radicalization to the left in enormous spheres like I've never seen before, of young people moving into full socialism, anarchism, communism spaces, and learning theory, and really being upset and angry at the adults who had completely failed for years. And even seeing people like Greta Thunberg being sort of a leader. We talked about leaders earlier and how like unreasonable and unfair it is for adults to be turning to a 16-year-old girl and demanding she tell them what we can do. And that sense of frustration and anger and disaffection and alienation from the adult mainstream, establishment history of the left has really sort of pushed a lot of radical activity. And I don't know where it's going, but I'm very impressed. And
along those same lines, I was thinking about, you look at FDR, and a lot of what he did as far as the New Deal was, there were similar things going on in the U.S. back, during the Depression. I mean, things were really, really bad for quite a long time. And there was this radicalization that was going on the left and on the right. But there was a big fear that the communists would take hold here. And so the idea was, okay, let's have, and the stuff that he did really wasn't socialism, but kind of in that direction, just to kind of stave off a bigger movement that might have been, gone further to the left, and further to the left certainly than people in power wanted there to be. So it was kind of like, all right, we'll appease the people with some good stuff, so they won't, rise up and kill us. So I agree with you. I think that's the other reason why I said too, to what I was saying to Kate, like, if if you remain active, say Biden wins and you remain active and you vote for, you primary out the more conservative Democrats in places that you can anyway, that's they can't ignore that. And if the House and Senate starts getting packed with more and more progressive people, they're going to be putting their legislation out there, and no Democratic president's going to veto bills from his own party. It's just not going to happen. So that's the thing. So you basically, like you said, Jack, you kind of render them at least partially irrelevant, because you say, hey, here you go. You wanted this in the Green New Deal, but we're going over here. And it's like, well, all right.
That was one of the things that Joe Biden said a few months ago, which kind of made the hair on the back of my neck stand up, because he said that if a Democratic Congress passed a Medicare for All bill, that he would veto it. Because he said he would have to be sure that it was all carefully costed and whatever. And it's like, dude, you know as well as anybody, you've been in the Senate for years, you can't pass a bill unless it's costed. You can't just pass the bill and say, oh, here, we got this great idea, do this.
Right.
That's the one thing about Bernie that drove me up the fucking wall, because every time someone asked him, how are you going to pay for it? He wouldn't answer. And it seems to me the answer is simple. Go after Big Pharma for price gouging, stop the wars and unbloat the military, and use the extra money for Medicare for All, and that sort of thing. It's like it's so easy. You can just point to things where it's like, we don't need that. Let's take the money and put it here. But he wouldn't say it, and it just drove me up the wall. I think if he would just say how he was going to pay for it, he would have gotten more votes. It just, so frustrating.
Yeah. For sure.
The reason for that is when you start getting into details about how to pay for things, especially like in a town hall or in a debate kind of a thing, you end up getting lost in the weeds, and people don't follow, and you end up misunderstanding, or you lose them completely because their mind's drift elsewhere.
I think that
he tried to explain it in bite-sized chicken McNugget sized things, like, hey, it's cheaper than what we're doing already.
Well, people didn't get that because all they wanted to hear was, will my taxes go up? And even then he kept bungling it. He should have said, look, whether or not your taxes go up, you will have more money in your wallet at the end of it. Sure, if you pay more taxes, but you keep more money on your insurance, you're going to have more money. So don't worry about your taxes. But he wouldn't say it. And that's what
I agree with you 100%. Well, okay, that's 3 times in one thing we agreed with each other.
Yeah, who'd have thunk it?
The 31 years I lived in the UK, I was privileged enough to enjoy the NHS free healthcare system over there. And the fact that we don't have that here, I saw a meme today showing all the countries that have universal health care and what year they got their health care in. And some of it goes back 50, 60 years. Most of it goes back in the past 25 to 30 years, though. So there's a lot of countries that have sort of just recently jumped on the bandwagon. And I can't see any logical reason or financial reason why America can't do what they can do in little tiny countries. And one more thing I'll say before I get off this. I mean, we give the state of Israel $3.5 billion or whatever, $3.8 billion every year, and I'm pretty sure that covers their whole health service. Not that's not what we give it to them for, but just to show you, we pay for theirs, but we don't pay for ours. That doesn't seem right.
Well, let me go down a very short rabbit hole here. Trust me, I'm going to bring it back. But you remember a while back, Richard Dawkins was talking about how someone said, well, my mom was like, okay, it's okay if you don't believe in God, but an atheist, you can't be in it, like that. And it sounds very similar because if you poll people, they love socialist like programs. But if you say the word socialist, all of a sudden, they're gone. And it's like, dude, stop letting a word scare you. Look at the substance. Look at the substance, you fuckers.
The ACA had like a 70-something% approval rating. Obamacare, people hated it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's the reason why, and I've said before, when I talk to business associates and they get so afraid, people in business, unfortunately, tend to be on the right wing. And, when I point out from a very much business perspective that single payer healthcare is awesome for small businesses. It's amazing for small businesses. So whether someone wants to think of it as socialist or not, it's like, hey, it's good for capitalists too, But yeah, you throw those terms around. That's why I laugh. I'm glad we haven't been addressing the clowns and I'm not saying everybody in the chat is a clown, but the people who are clowns, you know who they are. That we generally ignoring them because they're just sitting there and like they wanted to toss various calling us socialists and communists and all other sorts of stupidity, and it's just like. Yeah, you don't know what those words mean, and you don't even know what you're talking, and you're not even addressing the things we're actually saying. So it's just like, yeah, bite me.
It amazes me how well buzzwords work. I mean, you watch a Trump rally, and it's literally a litany of buzzwords chained together with a few conjunctions. There's not much to it.
Well, it's also crypto-fascist, isn't it? Like the Dave Lister in Red Dwarf, when he meets his younger self, called everything crypto-fascist. Anything he didn't like was crypto-fascist. I don't know.
What I want to do is because the peanut gallery, like the one that show up, they just like throw spitballs. Like if we're so horrible, why do they show up? What's the point? So that's why again I'm like, you know what? Yeah, let's not address them because
I think they like throwing their spitballs, Joe, and that's okay.
Yeah, but the thing is, I realize the best way to address them is not to because they never say.
There's a lot of boobs.
Well, that's true. But they never say anything of substance. They just make personal attacks. So it's just like, there's really no point in even talking about them or to them.
Well, there's a lot of big people. Talk is cheap on the internet, man. Talk is cheap in real life, but it's even cheaper on the internet,
True.
If I may, just like the trucks that tried to pull over Biden's campaign bus, it's a sign that they're scared. If they show up like this and they have to make sure that they're heard and they try to drown out any sort of support we would get for what we're talking about, it really shows how scared they are that we're about to win.
I don't agree with that. I really don't. I know a lot of people like to say, "Ooh, it's fear," especially like with things like that, or people hating on gays or whatever. But I mean, it seems to me that these are people who just think they have an advantage they can exploit, who think, hey, this is an opportunity to fuck up my enemy. I don't think they have to be scared for that. I know that's the common narrative, but I mean, I would exploit an advantage if I saw it. I wouldn't run anyone's car off the road, but if I saw a way to get in there and drive a wedge through something to make it go more my way, I'd do it.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, you okay?
Yeah, nice to see you.
Hi.
You look
a little unhappy.
I'm trying to. Are you a handmaiden?
I wouldn't ever even fucking fake being one of those. Are you kidding me? Not in a million years. Death first.
It's clearly some sort of cartoon character, but I don't recognize it. Is that supposed to be Stewie? Oh, okay.
It's like enormous on me actually, and I'm only really just out of the shower, half dressed, because I have to go be on another stream in a little bit. See, but this thing is like MC Hammer Pants on the bottom though, and it's really, really scary. I was like, I put them on, and then suddenly I had the urge to be like ticka 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 ticka.
Stop.
I totally want a pair of those MC Hammer pants. I would definitely wear them.
So now it's Stop Sister time.
Right? It might actually be death first before a handmaiden though, because it's about how I feel right now. So better than the last couple of days, but my head is in like a fugue. So
well, I'm glad you made it. Now it's a real birthday.
What do you mean a real birthday? Whose birthday is it?
Mine.
What?
Yeah, it's my birthday.
It's your birthday today?
It is.
Oh my god.
Why are we all
Your
dressed
birthday's
up?
on Halloween. Happy birthday. No, may the candles on your cake burn like cities in your wake. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. It's the candle. It's the Viking birthday dirge.
Birthday dirge. I love
Oh,
that.
neat.
I don't know, for some reason, I remember, what was it? Yesterday, I think. It was Henry Winkler's birthday. So someone, I'm not even sure who, I think it was Patton Oswalt, liked the limerick that was sent to him. And I was like, I can write limericks. So I decided, what the hey? Let's see if I can remember it. It was it's Winkler's birthday today. A toast to Henry Winkler today. The man who taught us to say, hey, it's true we never met. And I say, and yet, have a very happy birthday. Hooray! Or something like that. It was,
very good, yes.
It's fun to do that because now you can actually talk to a celebrity. They rarely talk back, but, sometimes they'll like the shit you post at them. It's great. Although actually, the guy who played Cousin Oliver from the Brady Bunch is a friend of mine on Facebook, and it's always fun when he comments because he's pretty clever. So yeah,
well, that's the thing. There are some people who do engage, and actually, I met Patton Oswalt years ago at a club in Manhattan, and it was like so after the show, went up to him and was like, and I brought up some stuff that he'd done like 1992, and he's like, "Holy shit, you remember that?" So he, this is back before most people were doing something. He actually gave me his email address, and I actually got invited to a free show in Manhattan. They put on. You ever heard of the play The Day the Clown Cried? It was this
sounds vaguely familiar.
Crazy project that Jerry Lewis wanted to do, where basically there was a clown during Nazi Germany.
Yes.
Yeah, you heard about it. And basically, so he was this clown and the Nazis were using him to entertain the children as they went off to the gas chamber, and it was just a nutty, ridiculous idea.
Oh,
and
that gives me shivers. Woo.
Oh yeah. And so the thing is, they got a hold of this script of his that Jerry Lewis had. It's been copied a billion times and floating around Hollywood. So they actually had a copy of his script, and Patton Oswalt was directing it, and they're doing the play, and it's like the guys from Mr. Show and some people from SNL and all this kind of stuff. And periodically he would stop the show to read to us like the crazy shit that was in the liner notes, and it was just like it was an amazing show.
You've heard what Patton Oswalt and a bunch of other folks are doing now, where they're like remaking The Princess Bride by remote, but it's not like they assign one role to one person. It's like they take a scene and say, okay, you celebrities do that scene. Then they take another scene and go, you celebrities do that scene. So it's like people are playing the characters their own way from scene to scene. And on the one hand, it sounds interesting, but on the other hand, remaking Princess Bride, fuck you. So
well, this comes from, there's a tradition online of MAPS, multi-animator projects. And, there's been a lot of that. I think the Shrek movie was probably the most famous, where they remade Shrek by having everybody animate like 10 seconds at a time of it.
Oh wow!
I'd love to do that.
It's wild. It's really incredible to watch because you just have like the most creative, weird things.
There's a series of videos on YouTube doing the music for Hamilton. And it's all the same thing. It's all different animators all the way through. And I sat and watched that. It was pretty wild.
I'm not a fan of musicals. I could go on a whole rant why, but I won't.
There's like 3 musicals that I don't hate. 2 of them are Grease 1 and Grease 2. And then I forget what the third one was.
I'll leave you with this.
Musicals. I don't like something just because it's a musical, though. But there's a lot of musicals I love. I love Jesus Christ Superstar. I think it's amazing. The Book of Mormon is the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. And it all by itself, deserves reverence.
I loved Jesus Christ Superstar. Jesus Christ Superstar is one of the best musicals ever.
But leaving aside the part where most of the music in musicals just isn't a genre I like, right. I think my biggest complaint, if so much could be solved if they address this, is that it's so rare for the musical number to move the plot forward. Like you watch any Disney movie that has like lots of musical numbers, inevitably it's just, here's how I feel, I'm going to sing about that for 5 minutes. If instead it was like, we're going on an adventure today and they describe all the shit that's happening in song, I'd be a lot more okay with it. But it's more like I'm just sitting there like, get on with it. I want more plot.
Yeah, most of them are boring. I mean, I guess maybe probably more than 3 because what is it? The one, the famous one with Rita Moreno. I'm drawing a blank. with the jets and the.
Right.
West Side Story.
West Side Story.
Yeah, West Side Story. Yeah, that's a cool one.
Sharks and the Jets.
And the producers movie was cool. But
That was cool.
The original one anyway. But yeah, generally speaking, like I think the ones that are like plays that get turned into movies are usually better than the ones that were just musicals that were just made to be like musical movies. Those just like Sound of Music makes me want to kill myself.
Wizard of Oz, for that matter. Not to mention Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
What about like Predator the music?
Okay. One of my favorite sci-fi movies is The Last Starfighter. There is a Last Starfighter musical out there. I've never seen it, but it exists. It's like this fly-by-night, third string theater thing.
Do you know if it's like 80s style music or is it more modern music?
It's more just your standard musical music.
Right.
Yeah. But it's still The Last Starfighter, and I kind of want to get my hands on it somehow. I think that'd be really cool. But the weird thing is, here's when I don't mind a musical number that doesn't move the plot forward. When you had no idea that there would be music at all. Like, Monty Python, Every Sperm is Sacred. Or in How I Met Your Mother, when Barney does that song about suits. And all of that stuff. That is hilarious because you're just sitting there going, "What the fuck? Where'd this come from?"
Every Sperm is Sacred is completely central to that whole section, man.
Yes, but you don't know it's coming. Is my point. You watch the scene as it's developing, and you're going, "Huh, where are they going with this?" Then all of a sudden they break into song. It's like, "What the fuck? Where'd this come from?"
Hey, Kate, no pun intended.
You
don't know it's coming.
Oh.
Kate,
I will find you.
Got that one.
I will find you. Besides, I didn't even know it was breathing hard.
You heard that they're making a sequel to The Last Starfighter, right?
Yeah, and I'm really hoping they decide it's not worth it, because honestly, when was the last time a sequel that came decades too late was actually any good? I can't name one.
Terminator 2.
Okay, fine. Name. Well, okay, let's do this. What percentage of sequels that come way the fuck too late are any good?
0.0.01.
Well, the thing is, but Terminator 2 wasn't that much later. It was only, it was like 6 or 7 years.
9 years.
Well, let's see, 84 or 86, I forget which.
81. I think Terminator 2 came out in 92, I think. Or 91.
Yeah, that's not so bad, but you get say, for example, that cinematic abortion they tried to call a Tron sequel, they came out 30 years too late, give or take. That was garbage, largely because they had no respect for the original material, but still, it was just like your standard action movie with a Tron veneer on top of it. It sucked.
And Independence Day Resurgence was awful.
I couldn't do that to myself. I could not watch it because I didn't want anything to impugn my love of the cheese that is Independence Day.
I am not happy with a Candyman remake. I think that's a bad idea. Candyman is a perfect movie. Tony Todd's voice is iconic.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And I didn't even like the movie, but it shouldn't be remade.
You can't do it. It's lightning in a bottle. That movie is perfect.
There are some movies that shouldn't be remade, but I think there's also lots of songs that shouldn't be remade, right? And some of the songs that I personally think should never be remade keep getting remade, and it kind of bothers me a lot. Like how many times I've heard people do a version of Let's Get It On by Marvin Gaye, but Marvin Gaye nailed it. It can't be done any better. Shut up and fucking leave it alone, right?
Okay, well, here's
there
one.
There are some songs that have been remade better, though.
You either have to be so loyal to the source material or completely make it your own. Don't try.
I have one in particular that I'm really split on. I think it really needs to be remade. I think it really needs to be updated. I don't want them to redo it because they'll fuck it up. Flash Gordon.
Yeah.
Well, the TV show is terrible. I'll say that. The remake TV show is awful.
There was
I didn't watch it because I knew it would be bad. But as far as songs, a couple songs, and Kate said a second ago that there are occasionally songs that are actually better than the original, and I would argue that the Disturbed version of Sound of Silence is better than the original. And even Suzanne, who's a huge Simon and Garfunkel fan, said the same thing. Because what it is that it's obviously the deep, dark song. The way they sang in the original is just a little too jaunty, whereas, in the Disturbed version, you kind of feel the darkness,
Well, one that I think is definitely better, I mean, without a doubt better, is Come On, Feel the Noise as Quiet Riot played it.
Oh, hell yeah.
Significantly better. There's a couple, though, where, what is it? I think it was Metallica and Thin Lizzy, I want to say, did covers of Whiskey in the Jar, which is an Irish drinking song. And there was something they did to it that I have to say royally fucked it up for me. Because the original chorus sort of ends with, there's whiskey in the jar, like that. Yes. What they did was, there's whiskey in the jar, row. And I'm like, where the fuck did that O come from? That's not right.
Yeah. It's like they make it into something more like a pirate song. There's whiskey in the jar, row.
It came from Fleetwood Mac.
What from Fleetwood Mac?
The O on Jarro. It came from Fleetwood Mac.
Well, all I know is it doesn't sound like the song I heard when I was hanging out at Irish pubs, and that pisses me off.
Speaking of Metallica, though, I don't know if necessarily it's better, but I think it's equal and different. Is Metallica's version of "Turn the Page"?
Metallica's version of "Whiskey in the Jar."
Because the original song captures the loneliness of the road. But the Metallica version captures the angst, because that's what Metallica does, is angst.
How about the Johnny Cash version of Hurt?
That's a good one.
Trent Reznor said that Johnny Cash's version is better. So
there are a lot of songs that have been covered in different genres where, it's like, I love the pop punk version because I can't stand country, which is what they did with the original. Like Me First and the Gimme Gimmes pop punk band did this amazing album of like country songs, but done in a pop punk style. It's why I totally love Goodbye Earl by the Dixie Chicks, because when it's played by Me First and the Gimme Gimmes, it kicks so much ass.
Well, two of my favorites, speaking of that, is one, Come On Eileen by Save Ferris. It's the same genre as Me First and the Gimme Gimmes. So if you like them, look up Come On Eileen. It's like all like
what's the band name?
Save Ferris, like Ferris Bueller's Save.
Okay.
And then I also really like Steve and Seagulls, like Steven Seagal, like the seagull, did a cover of AC/DC's Thunderstruck, but they did it with like an accordion, a cello, spoons, and it is
I've seen that,
ever, and an anvil, like bang, bang. Like,
have you ever heard of a song a band called Hayseed Dixie that does like these bluegrass covers of AC/DC songs? It's crazy.
They used to come to Penzance when I lived in Cornwall. I just want to say my two favorite cover songs are my favorites because they totally improve on the source material without robbing it or trying to sound like it. Number one is "Got to Get You Into My Life" by Earth, Wind and Fire. I mean, I love that song by the Beatles, and Earth, Wind and Fire just said next level, and I think they made it completely their own. And also Whitney Houston's cover from Dolly Parton of "I Will Always Love You." I mean,
that's a cover?
Yeah.
Hold on.
Yep, it is.
Celine Dion. No, that's My Heart Will Go On.
It's a Dolly Parton song.
I had no idea. Did you know that the song "Blinded by the Light," "Blinded by the Light," that is a cover that is Manfred Mann covered Bruce Springsteen.
Right.
Okay, I will say this now. I know this is going to sound like fucking heresy, so, cut me some slack. I don't understand the appeal of Queen. They're okay, but I'm not like the way a lot of people are. That said, you gotta love Weird Al's Bohemian Polka. You just gotta.
You gotta love,
of course, anything Weird Al. Come on.
Weird Al's like in
a class by himself.
Sorry, go ahead, Sue.
Speaking of Weird Al, have you seen his new video that he's posted recently? It was like a political thing, like a voting, like a get out the vote type of thing. It recently came out within a week or so, and I've seen it on YouTube. It is brilliant. It is so well done. I was like, wow, Weird Al gone political. That's pretty cool.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say about Queen really quick to Kate. But I didn't even really realize how much of a Queen fan I was until the day Freddie Mercury died, and I cried for the whole day. And I didn't even matter to me that much, like at all. And in 1982, I went to see Queen live. And at the time, in 1982, it was by far the best concert I ever saw. So I was totally a OT. And Freddie Mercury, when he was on stage, he owned every single one of us. He had us in the palms of his hand.
Well, maybe that's it, because I'd never seen them live. I've only heard what's been recorded, and the music is okay. It's not really my thing. But you want to talk about like dead musical artists? I think it's December 10th that Marie Fredriksson of Roxette died, and you should have seen the big snotty mess I was when that happened.
How old were they?
She was like I want to say like 62 something. I'd have to look.
Wow, really
but it was brain cancer. She'd been fighting it for 17 years. So
shit.
yeah. But needless to say, man, a tiny bit of me was ripped out and curb stomped when she died.
Well, another great cover, and ironically, the cover was going to be done with the original singer, whose name escapes me right now. I'm sure you guys will all remember, who I'm talking about. But the song "Zombie,"
yes, Cranberries,
covered by Bad Wolves. The thing is, she was supposed to record the cover with them that day, and she died, and that's why she was in the UK, and she died. Actually, no, sorry, in the United States, and so she died. And then they went and did basically the family was like, no, please do it anyway. So they did the cover and gave all the proceeds to her, basically her children. Wow. And it's an amazing cover. And I would say it's at least on par. And I like it better than the original. But it's not like it's sad because she was supposed to be in it. But she's not. And but yeah, been really amazing.
Well, the thing is, I can't stand that song. And I thought on the basis of that, I couldn't stand the Cranberries. But then I heard other songs of theirs, and I was like, oh. And I keep having the same experience with bands where the song that gets played the most, and the only song I hear, because I don't go out and buy their albums, is a song I can't fucking stand. But then I hear something else they did. Like, what's that one Eurythmics song, Sweet Dreams Are Made of This?
Yeah.
I hate that song with the white hot fury of 1,000 suns. But you show me some of their other stuff, I'm like, oh, this isn't a bad band. Same thing happened with Nirvana. Like, I hate Smells Like Teen Spirit. Just can't stand it. It's too angry and dark and gross. But then I heard some of their other music. I'm like, are these guys hippies? It was just weird.
I have version.
REM, Losing My Religion. Hate it, but love Stand.
I have a badass version of that song, the Eurythmics one, Sweet Dreams, and that a friend of mine did who was a DJ, and they did a mashup of Sweet Dreams Without Me by Eminem, and it's awesome.
Oh, I heard it. Yeah, I heard that.
I actually heard that song remixed the Eurythmics song remixed to be in a major key. And all of a sudden, I love the crap out of it. The same thing happened with Smells Like Teen Spirit, actually, although it sounds like a weird sort of like 90s ballad when you do that to it. And I'm realizing that I just don't like music in a minor key. It's always dreary.
One thing I'm laughing a little bit what you said about hearing the songs, the one song by the band that you hate and then finding out there's other good stuff. Because when I was in college, a friend of mine, he wanted so desperately for me to like They Might Be Giants. And so every time I would stop by his room to visit him, he would put them on. But he would always put the same fucking song on. And it was, I don't know what the name of the song is, but he's like, they'll need a crane, they'll need a crane. And it says fuck. And I've heard other songs by them that I don't hate so much, but I'm not a big fan. But if I was like, Bob, try something else, because this song makes me want to pick that record up and smash it in pieces.
That is not the song to introduce someone to Team Dixie with. That is the wrong song. Start with Istanbul, not Constantinople, or Particle Man, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, everybody loves Istanbul, right? It's a convention classic.
Mm-hmm. One thing that's funny about They Might Be Giants, I remember when their album Factory Showroom came out, and the song I loved best on there was called New York City. Everyone's your friend in New York City, that one. And it turned out that that's a cover by a Canadian band called Cub. They were like this 90s cuddlecore band. And when I saw They Might Be Giants in concert for the second time, Cub opened for them and said, oh, by the way, that song on their album, New York City, yeah, that's ours. They covered it. And I was like, well, holy shit, I'm buying your albums now, aren't I? And it turned out that I loved what they did back in the day. So
another great cover is Soundgarden does the cover of the Black Sabbath song Into the Void, but they changed the words. They replaced the words completely, and they take something that's attributed to basically Chief Seattle, the one that Seattle's named after. And they took what he said, basically the letter that was supposedly him written to the president of the United States at the time. And so it's the same exact music from the Into the Void song, and it's really, really well done. And it's I put that on at least on par with the original.
There's one thing that I've been saying for years, and that fact irritates me because now Bill Bailey started integrating it into one of his routines. And I'm like, did you get that from me, or was just great minds stink alike? I don't know. But it's, in the Hall of the Mountain King,
Yes.
sounds just like an evil Mary Had a Little Lamb. Mary had a little lamb, little lamb, little lamb. Mary had a little lamb, whose face was white as snow. It's fucking Mary Had a Little Lamb if it was being sung by like some evil troll king in a dungeon.
Oh
my gosh, if it was being sung by the three little kids in Nightmare Before Christmas. Yes.
There's a Pantera song called Walk, and the lead out is like, and every time I hear that lead out, I always, in my head, I always think Salakadool, Michikabool, Bibbidi Boppity Boo. It's the exact same cadence. And I'll actually sing it that way. Salakadool, Michikabool, Bibbidi Boppity Boo. That's exact. It goes right with the time.
Hands up if there are a lot of songs where you know the Weird Al lyrics and not the real ones.
Oh yeah, well like Amish Paradise.
Amish,
and all about the.
I love Amish
and all about the Benjamins, and way better than
all about the Pentiums.
And a long time ago, in
a galaxy far away.
Yeah.
Or here's one. I think I'm a clone now. That one. I should know the Tiffany version, but I start singing along to it, and it just morphs into Weird Al against my will.
Yes, I am definitely. I suffer from that big time. Like if I know the Weird Al song, it overrides everything in my head. Eat it. That's
the thing. Half the time
one of my favorites. One of my favorite songs is the anti-procrastination song.
Not familiar with it at all.
I'll listen to it later, though.
It's 3 seconds.
About 7 seconds long.
He yells anti-procrastination song, and then there's like a drum lead out, like super hardcore.
Well, I'm going to procrastinate later.
Either that or the Ballad to Jimi Hendrix is like don't you're dead. Or
that smells like Nirvana is what that. It's hard to blarf nargles out with all these marbles in my mouth. Oh no.
Okay. While we're talking about music, I want to ask you all a question. What's the most problematic song lyric you can think of that maybe wasn't problematic when the song was new, but nowadays people would literally spit when they hear it?
I have one. Like definitely. I don't know that I would say it's super problematic, but it definitely would not be okay. But do you know that song from Mungo Jerry? In the summertime, when the weather is hot, you could jump right up and touch the sky. Okay, in that song, he says things like, if her daddy is rich, take her out for a meal. If her daddy is poor, just do what you feel. And other lines like, have a drink, have a drive, go out and see what you can find. Like, what? This whole song is all about just like, go grab some sushi and drink and drive at he says, at a ton or a ton of 25, which I had to ask somebody from England what that meant, which apparently means a ton means 100 miles per hour. So a ton or a ton of 25 is 125 miles per hour. I'm like, what the? And while drinking, have a drink, have a drive, go out and see.
The Rolling Stones. The Rolling Stones. Under My Thumb. Under My Thumb. That song is pretty the entire song is pretty problematic.
The lyrics I always think of when I think about this question is from Jimi Hendrix, and I think it's on Voodoo Child, where he says, "I made love to you while you were sleeping. Lord knows you felt no pain."
Well, when you think about it, Every Breath You Take, like the whole song, Every Breath You Take by the Police, kind of ishy. You know?
That's the stalker. Yep, that's the stalker song. I can't listen to Every Breath You Take again. As soon as I heard it was the stalker thing and the story behind it, I'm like, no, I can't do it anymore. What do you remember? Do you remember the Baby It's Cold Outside controversy with the Christmas song? That's the one I was thinking of.
Hey There, Delilah.
Chance to Dream.
Hey There, Delilah by Plain White Tees.
And maybe it's just me, but the first electronic doxing of anybody had to be 8675309. I mean, because that was a real phone number.
Hey There, Delilah by the Plain White Tees. If you don't know, that song was written about a real person that the singer was stalking and was in love with, and she wanted nothing to do with him. The whole song is really creepy.
Damn. Well, Paul, now are you counting ones that are intentional, that were done intentionally to be over the top?
Sure.
Then lots of Rammstein lyrics.
You ever listen to Ninja Sex Party? Or Steel Panther, for that matter? Because holy shit.
Guns N' Roses, 1 in a Million. Immigrants and Faggots make no sense to me. They come to our country and think they'll do as they please, like start some mini Iran or spread some fucking disease. And they talk goddamn ways. To me. What was that?
That's similar to what I was about to say. A couple of years ago, one of my friends said, "Call into the radio station and request Eric Clapton's Cocaine song."
She don't lie.
And the word cocaine was bleeped out of the song. It is the main lyric of the song, but because it's the name of a drug, they bleeped it out. The very next song they played was Dire Straits' Money for Nothing. That little faggot got his own jet airplane.
Yeah.
And I was like, how are you going to play that? Right. You can't even say the word cocaine on your station.
I always found that song irritating anyway. So,
in 1987, I had just moved away from Juneau, Alaska, to go back to California. As I was a DJ on the radio, and my station had just started playing "I Want Your Sex" by George Michael. So it's a long ferry ride down to Port, whatever it was, in Canada, and then a drive down to California. So I'm driving through Seattle. This would be, 1987, and I hear "I Want Your Sex" come on some Seattle radio station, and they didn't bleep it. They silenced the word "sex" out, and I mean it's the word "sex." It's not even a dirty word. It's like, and I just like, "I want your." Please finish the sentence. I mean, that could be, what if you leave that up to the imagination, it could be worse than a word that sex is not the worst word you could come up with.
Right.
Okay, Josie Cotton, "Johnny, Are You Queer?" That's the title of the song, "Johnny, Are You Queer?" The whole thing is this girl is crushing on a dude, and she starts to suspect he might be gay. That's the whole song.
So, here's one, Paul. It's a short song. It's an Alice in Chains song. Love, Hate, Love. I tried to love you. I thought I could. I tried to own you. I thought I would. I want to peel the skin from your face before the real you lays to waste. You told me I'm the only one. Sweet little angel, you should have run. Lying, crying, dying to leave. Innocence creates my hell. And then cheating myself, still you know more. It would be so easy with the whore. Try to understand me, little girl. My twisted passion to be your world. Lost inside my sick head. I live for you, but I'm not alive. Take my hand before I kill. I still love you, but I still burn.
So that's it. I don't know if you guys knew this already, but I just recently learned, I just found this out, that Pearl Jam's Alive, I'm Still Alive. And Once. And then there's another song. I don't remember what it is. Anyway, the 3 songs, it's a story. It's a trilogy. And it's about this young man who, when he comes of age, is basically seduced by his mother. ends up having this big incestuous relationship with her, tries to break it off and get away, and ends up losing his mind and going to prison for being a serial killer. That's what the trilogy is about. And none of them, when you listen to the songs, they're all like catchy and but, yeah.
Oh, that's gonna change my way to listen to Pearl Jam now.
If any of you have ever heard of this album, like never mind listening to it, I'll be shocked if any of you even know it exists. It's called Naughty Songs for Boys and Girls. My parents bought it for me in the 70s, and like most of it is just silly. Like there's a song called "You Can't Say" on the radio. You know,
oh
like
yeah,
that.
I totally know that. That's Monty Python, though.
No, it's not. No, it's not. No, it's not.
I bet you they won't play this song on the
No.
This
is you can't say on the radio. You can't say on the radio. You can't say on the radio. Like that. Like,
okay,
that sounds like Dr. Demento.
It almost does.
But there's this one creepy as fuck song on there that goes like, "Hey Jack, what's in the sack? What's in the sack that you're carrying on your back, Jack?" You know, and the whole thing is about how this sack on the guy's back is like moving and making little sounds. And it turns out that it's like little Billy Henderson inside the sack that Jack's carrying. And it's just like, where did like all of these other Fluffy Bunny songs, and now this creepy as fuck murder story on the Child's album. It was just crazy.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
It's like they just stuck it in there like, surprise.
One of my favorite songs of all time is The Decline by NoFX. It's a 19-minute punk rock song, and it is ultra political. And it is very, of the times right now, you should listen to it before you vote, I would say. But they have a problematic song in their back catalog called My Vagina, which, for reasons of us now accepting people who are trans, it would be cancel culturable, like seriously. It's horrible.
What's the name of the band?
It jokes about somebody who got a vagina, and the song is called My Vagina. The music isn't that bad to it, but like thinking back about like who I was as a teenager versus like now, holy shit, that's a bad song. Like, I would never want that played in front of anyone, in my house. It's just.
How about when there's a band that seems perfectly innocent, but when you like look at what's going on behind the scenes, you're like, God damn it, why do you have to be skinheads? Like there's this Swedish band called Ultima Thule that does metal covers of Viking sea shanties, and it's awesome. But when I looked behind the scenes, I'm like, yeah, you guys are getting deleted off my phone now because I don't want anyone to know I got you. It's because like the song's amazing. Like they have this one called Den Blomstertid Nu Kommer, which means the time of blossoming is coming. You wouldn't expect like freaking skinheads to be singing that, but the way they play it is just awesome, and now I'm ashamed of listening to it, and I hate that.
My former roommate, when I lived in London, he had a couple of bands while we were roommates, and one of his bands is more or less a solo project with a little bit of outside help. And I'll tell you the name of the band in a second, or the act, whatever. But the purpose of the band is to literally be the most offensive album ever made. And he's made 2 albums. And so he had to top the first album with the second album. And he has sent me links on private messages in Facebook to listen to his albums. But I was his roommate. I've already heard it all. I don't need to click the link. And there's no fucking way I'm clicking that goddamn link. If you ever heard what those songs are, and seriously, they're deliberately offensive. That's the whole point of the band. But it's so wrong.
You're feisty over there.
The first time you hear the lyrics, you will laugh at it, and then you're going to beat yourself up for the rest of the night. Why did I fucking laugh at that?
I'm pretty sure that anything by Kevin Bloody Wilson is completely out.
The name of the band is Jimmy Savile with a T, not J. Now, Jimmy Savile was famously a TV host for many decades on the BBC, and it later turned out that he was a kiddie fiddler and abused dozens and dozens of young people over the years. So
how is that last name spelled?
Huh?
that last name. You said Timmy what?
Timmy Savile, Saville. Yeah,
Oh.
Not listening to it.
Well, I'm just curious is all. And wow, if that's actually a picture of him, he looks like Commander Data if he was human and 1,000 years old with a cigar. Like, wow. Okay.
Yeah, he'll be really pleased I gave this publicity out, especially since it's Halloween. That's really funny. But,
oh, dear gods, just looking at the track names. Ugh. like there's one called what was it? I Hate the Jews the Most. There's another one, Cancer Romancer. I'm just like, really? Wow. Okay. Wow. Yeah. You know what? I don't have to listen. I'm curiosity satisfied. Like, okay, now this is going to sound horrible, but last year, I think it was, a bunch of my friends in Seattle, the goth scene, were like, did you hear about that one dude, one of the DJs who just got arrested? And it turns out that he was involved in this like child sex trafficking thing. And people were going, wow, I used to hang out with this guy. I had no idea. It's creepy as fuck. And everyone was saying, do not read the police report because the last thing you want to hear is the words 7-month-old. And I'm just like, wow, I'm morbidly curious now, but I also value my sanity just a smidge. So I'm going to avoid looking it up, much the way I'm not going to listen to those songs.
Well, this is probably the most disturbing Rammstein lyric. It was a song called Stein Stein, which is stone by stone or brick by brick. And basically the song's about whoever the person that the singer is singing to, how he's building a house for them, but they're being basically walled into the house. So like the final lyrics are like, without clothes, without shoes, you watch me working with your feet in cement. You brighten up the foundation. Outside there will be a garden and no one will hear you scream.
Very Edgar Allan Poe.
I mean, sometimes like some bands obviously do, like especially death metal bands, they write deliberately disturbing lyrics, and it wasn't like they were ever okay, and then the social zeitgeist changed. Like some of them, I mean, like when Sublime did Date Rape, it was always wrong. It was wrong, and it's wrong now.
Well, it's funny. Some of the more problematic lyrics from Rammstein are actually they're German folk tales that have been converted to songs. And if you read German folk tales like Caroline and the Matches, basically the girl and she gets immolated while her cats are running around screaming like, ah.
You can see a musical version of that in Shock-Headed Peter. It's excellent and terrible all at once. If you like that kind of thing, I mean, it's basically horror stories for children to teach them moral lessons.
There's one they do that's actually a poem by Goethe, which is basically in the original poem, the father and child are going to see the mother, and they're in a cart, and these spirits come and they're trying to take the child's spirit away, and the father, trying to hold on to his child, basically squeezes the child to death, and then they take the spirit. So for the Rammstein song, it's the same story, but it's on an airplane, and it's spirits of the air that try to take him. But it's like messed up. But it's like, yeah, these are like folk stories that would be told to children in Germany, and like, holy shit.
I actually kind of like when they do the reverse. When you get like a death metal band, especially one of those ones where you can barely understand the lyrics because it's like that. But if you look at the lyrics, it's like, flowers and puppies, I love my mom, stuff like that. And it's just like, wow, you guys had me so snowed.
There's a Tool song like that called "The Eye of Satan," which is and it's done in a cadence. It sounds like he's like a Nazi rally, but when you look at the lyrics, he's making hash brownies.
One of the ones I had said earlier, although I was kind of interrupting, but I'm pretty sure that anything written by Kevin Bloody Wilson in the 80s and 90s would be on the list of not okay anymore. I mean,
I know that name.
He's kind of an Australian. What do you call it when somebody they write? It's kind of like
it's like bar music.
He's like Weird Al covers songs, right? And so there's sometimes that he it's kind of like filk, like where he'll he'll cover a song, but give like he did the like it'll be a recognizable tune, but maybe he's just done. But then he also does original tunes that are just all his own that are, but they're comedy songs, if you know what I mean. Sort of like you know, Skull Crusher Mountain, or you know, the periodic table of elements song, you know, like comedy song. But his are all very politically incorrect, with lots of references to calling the Aboriginals Sambos, which is a really bad that's, you know, our version of the N-word basically for them down there. And I mean, it's like comedy music. It's hilarious, and you'll listen to it and you will laugh, and then you'll go, this is holy crap terrible. Like, this is not
there's a couple of like song
stuff too. I mean, off that Smells Like Nirvana album, there's Trigger Happy, and there's you don't love me anymore.
Oh yeah.
And it's just one of those days, you know. Then late at night, just before I go to bed, the world blows up, and now everybody's dead. That one.
Lovely.
Happy, this is a warm gun.
Oh, or Albuquerque. That's another one.
Yes, that's a good one. I like that one. Trying to look up the lyrics. Or there's an Overkill song called Head First.
I know the lead singer of that band. He's an absolute piece of shit. Like, I know him like at a personal level because he lives in my town.
Oh.
So I went to this is a few years ago. I don't know, Joe might remember this. So I took Penny to the dog park. I had her a few months, and the lead singer of Overkill, Bobby Ellsworth, Bobby Blitz is his stage name, right? He was at the dog park with his German Shepherd. Penny's running around and she's making noises like pit bulls do. And Bobby, who lives next door to the house I grew up in, I knew him for years, right? He was my next door neighbor when I was a teenager. Anyway, so Bobby says to me, hey, if your dog bites my dog, I'm going to kick her. And I said, motherfucker, you kick my dog, we're going to have a problem. You know, but yeah, Bobby Blitz is an asshole. And he's a drunk. He's in town almost every night, tanked up. Anyway.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they actually, and the band actually formed in my hometown.
Well, you want to talk about people who get drunk. What's the name of the dude from the Pogues who like now has absolutely
Shane
no
McGowan.
teeth? Completely
I love that guy.
incoherent. Dude fucked himself up with booze so
Shane
hard.
McGowan, not WWE, so he was a huge meth addict as well, and he's actually struggled his whole life. I actually really like the Pogues, and I really like Shane McGowan. Like, that dude is an incredible singer and musician, but yeah, he has definitely struggled his whole life. And I know that now, like several years ago, I mean, he had all of his teeth pulled, he got dentures, and he largely is clean. I mean, I guess that, you know, I mean, for most people, if you're really that into drugs, it's very hard to go clean and then stay clean forever. You know, everybody kind of will relapse.
Damaged. That's the thing. Clean or not, he's very damaged. Like you, if you watch him in an interview or something, he's barely coherent.
He basically did all the drugs. I mean, he's kind of like the Irish Keith Richards, probably. So, but yeah, and it's interesting though. If you even go back and watch his old stuff, you can just see in like every performance ever that he did, just anytime it's like a live tea, like he performed with the Dubliners and all kinds of just really famous people. But if you watch and it's a live version of it, you can just tell he's drinking on stage and he's just fucked up. Like just, it's amazing that guy can even sing these songs somewhat intelligibly, as incoherent as he's just like on stage, like, but he's singing it. Like he's doing it, and he's doing the harmony parts, and I'm just like, wow, how does that guy even do that? You know? And
think about Ozzy. I mean, he basically spent like 3 decades soused, and he'd go out there and do the shows though. And I saw him one of the times I saw him was, I guess, '89. It was Vixen, White Lion, and Ozzy, and I had third row center at the Meadowlands. So to the point where I was so close that they could, that, you know, normally the people on the stage can't see anybody in the crowd because it's dark out there and we're up in the light. But if you're close enough to the stage, there's the stage light that is actually reflecting onto you. And you know, and Ozzy, and you know, he's on all sorts of drugs and he's drunk and everything, and he's running around. But yeah, he put on an awesome show. And the best part for me was, you know, everyone's standing on their chairs. We're at floor seats. And then at one point, he's over on the side and he's messing with the people on the one side of the stage. So everybody in my section like got off their chairs, and so just except me and my friend John, and we're just still up on our chairs. And then Ozzy comes running back toward the middle of the stage, and we're the only ones standing on our chair. He went right to us. He saw us, and he's like, ah! And we're like, ah! And he's like, ah! So that was so
Speaking of
thinking that Ozzy has Parkinson's now.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, he does.
So speaking of celebrities from the UK, Sean Connery just died.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a bummer.
Somebody.
I mean, granted, he hasn't been in a movie since The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, but
Yeah, he's been retired for like 10 years or more.
Oh, he's 90.
Yeah,
I mean,
not to change the subject back, because I went searching for this and I found it. Problematic song lyrics.
uh-oh.
Yeah. Well, Long Tall Sally, she's really sweet. She got everything that Uncle John needs. Oh, baby, yes, baby, having some fun tonight.
egad.
Long tall Sally.
Long Tall Sally.
You know, but that series of words is making me think of a different song, though, I think. Well, what's the song
I don't know why it's the lyrics from Long Tall Sally.
I think it's Lay Down, Sally? Lay down, Sally. Gonna rest you in my arms. I've been waiting all night long just to talk to you. But Long Tall Sally fits in there. Ah!
Yeah, Long Tall Sally. This is a Little Richard from like 1950 something. Yeah, the lyrics of that song are kind of fucked up.
Well, think about the song Brown Sugar. I mean, he's talking about slave women.
Whoa.
And when they sing live, my understanding was like for the radio, he says, "How come you dance?" Actually, even the original, he says, "How come you taste so good?" I mean, you know.
I mean, horrible pickup lines that we thought were funny when we were in high school, where I see you don't have a drink. Would you mind just chewing these? I mean.
Well, you know, in the Seattle goth scene, a very standard but jokey pickup line is "Nice boots, wanna fuck?"
Yeah, for real, it's true.
Yeah.
And Van Morrison, Brown Eyed Girl. From what I understand, from what I had heard on some thing.
Do not ruin this song for me. Well,
the original words were Brown Skin Girl, and they made him change it.
Ew.
Brown Eyed Girl.
I mean, I guess, like, isn't it sort of a love song, though? I guess if he's saying, "I totally dig on your skin tone," I mean, I guess in a way it's kind of like...
Well, it is. The whole song is pretty upbeat. I don't think there's anything that's really wrong with those lyrics. It's like he's kind of reminiscing about, you know, kind of your first young love with his girlfriend or something, right? So, I mean...
Yeah, to Paul's question, the first verse of Brown Sugar is Gold Coast slave ships bound for cotton fields, sold at the market down in New Orleans. Scarred old slaver knows he's doing all right. Hear him whip the women just around midnight.
Holy shiesta, what?
You're having a conversation on how to ruin songs for the rest of your life.
Well, if you think about it, think about like probably like at least 50% of the love songs are really codependent. It's all about like being possessive.
That's true. That is true. You're right.
There's that Kelly Clarkson song called "Life Would Suck Without You" or "My Life Would Suck Without You" or something. And wow, the lyrics to that remind me of one of my exes. I'm just saying. So,
like every 80s song ever is about basically codependence and dudes.
Codependence or you get the stalker songs like we were talking about earlier.
They're all quite sexist if you think about it, you know.
True.
What is that?
Actually, I went to one of those problematic lyric sites looking for Roxette lyrics, and there's none. So, you know, but a lot of their songs that are about love are actually, you know, like "Listen to Your Heart When He's Calling for You." You know, that's not like codependence. That's if some dude's crushing on you, think about it for a sec.
Sure.
Walking like a man, hitting like a hammer. She's a juvenile scam. Never was a quitter.
Okay, I'll tell you the story behind that. Actually, the look. Per Gessle was writing it, and he just put in a bunch of placeholder lyrics for what he was going to like write later, and never stopped. Like he kept the weirdo lyrics, so there is no coherence to that song. There's no continuity, nothing. It's just random syllables that he liked.
Yeah, I love
Tim Minchin has that one song. If I didn't have you, I'd be with somebody else.
Well, it's in the placeholder lyrics. Are you guys familiar with the band Loudness? They're a Japanese metal band. So anyway, they Rock and Roll Crazy Nights is not their most favorite song. And what happened was, for the bridge, they didn't know they wanted to like have them shout out something. So, but they put in some placeholders, and all they put in was just MZA, and they were supposed to put something in later, but then came time to record, and they didn't have anything, so they sang it that way, and they're like, "Oh, well, we'll do it in post, we'll change it," and they just never did. So when you get to that, so then what they did, so in the video for it, they literally just when they said MZA, and they're actually showing the letters MZA, and like it doesn't mean anything at all. they're just there for filler.
What the Green Machine said in the chat, I think I'm turning Japanese. I think I'm learning Japanese.
I think
nice.
Japanese by the Vapors is a song about masturbation.
I heard it was like literally doing this because while you're like, I don't think it's masturbation, I think it's sex.
No, it's
and
about
I'm doing this.
masturbation. Listen to it again. It's about masturbation.
All right.
Hey guys,
There's a song
I have
by the
to
Beatles.
go.
There's a song by the Beatles, which Please Please Me, which is definitely about going down. 100%.
What song is
Well,
that?
I'm surprised nobody has mentioned I Touch Myself by the Divinals yet.
Oh, that just spells it out anyway.
Well, still,
Yeah.
I mean, but then
Yeah,
there was
sure.
that one song- I don't even remember the band that played it, but you remember in the 90s there was Detachable Penis?
Yes, I heard that. I remember that one. Yep.
That's a weird song.
Yeah, but I don't hear. Oh, who was that band? Because I remember hearing that too. Oh shoot.
Well, as far as songs about going down, Paul, there's an Overkill song called Head First. So and you read the lyrics, it's pretty clear what they're talking about.
King Missile apparently sang that song.
So growing up, my favorite wrong song, as far as listenable songs, was actually "Rock and Roll Never Felt So Good" by GWAR. And it's actually about them raping a girl that has no arms and no legs, and the whole encounter with that. But my brother was into some really brutal metal, and he had a song by Cannibal Corpse called "Fucked with a Knife," which
I know about that band. I heard that band. Yeah.
Like way over the top. Their artistry was way over the top. But these are bands that intended it. But a couple weeks ago, I sent a link to Rob about a really old song that was actually by Louis Farrakhan. Before he was a leader in Islam, he was a pop singer, and he wrote a song called "Is She Is or Is She Ain't?" And he was making fun of trans people way back in the day.
Wow, that's trivia.
Title sounds so familiar.
You try to be intersectional, and you try to marry feminism and Islam together, in under a large umbrella of like minorities. And it's really hard when you know that like Louis Farrakhan made fun of trans people, and that's how he became famous.
Wow.
He did a lot of heinous shit. I mean, most of what he ever said was pretty heinous. But yeah, to the song you're talking about, the GWAR song, it says, and I said, "Baby, you're looking good." That's when I noticed her legs were wood. I grabbed a stump and dragged her out the door. I need a hole. I don't need no hips. I laid a line of coke on her tits, and that's when I ripped off her dirty shit-filled drawers. Now, GWAR's obviously they're for comedy. They're
Yeah.
I'm surprised no one has mentioned ICP yet. Insane Clown Posse.
Oh God, yeah.
That's another one that's very intentional too.
So I'm looking at the lyrics from "Dude Looks Like a Lady" by Aerosmith, and honestly, I understand about half of them.
Okay, now, Dude Looks Like a Lady, though, is not about anyone who's trans. It's not about cross-dressers or trans. No, it sounds like it. It's about Vince Neil.
Well, I'm just saying I didn't.
Oh, okay. I could see where. Okay, I see where that connection comes in now.
Like specifically about Vince Neil?
The song is about Vince Neil. It's mocking Vince Neil. That's what the song is.
Oh.
Oh, and I think I know why, because I remember the bands back in the 80s, they actually had a lot of the metal bands back then. Yep.
It's Motley Crue, and then they were
I can see that. Oh, that's a good one too.
That's that rockumentary or whatever called The Dirt. I think it's about Motley Crue. It was on Netflix for a while. I don't know if it's still on there or not, but I mean, I never really liked Motley Crue very much. I thought they were a pretend metal band. You know what I mean? But I have to admit, they did have a lot of famous songs. And, the movie is way better than I thought it was going to be.
Okay.
Dude looks like
I think I see what the song is getting at.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, I liked older Motley Crue, like first 3 albums, and then after that,
Live Wire.
There's a few songs here and there after that, and it gets worked. What the funniest part is, like back in, I guess it was about 2010. They did a tour, and Vince Neil was so out of shape and so out of practice that he's singing and he's unintelligible. And there have been a number of people who have taken, because they did a live video. They've taken like some of the songs and like put in like, quote unquote, the real lyrics. And it's hilarious. Some of them are hilarious. And the thing is that the stuff they're putting as alternate lyrics actually sound like they could be correct, even though they're not.
Well, seeing some of the pictures of him from now, it looks like he ate at least half of his other bandmates. I don't know what the hell happened to the guy, but
he's in really bad shape. I mean, he can barely keep up with the lyrics when he's singing.
Well, and that's
not intelligible, and he can't breathe.
Right, exactly. He gets out of breath. So he just got to let it be.
Well, there was a Patton Oswalt routine talking about that, where I think it was John Bon Jovi tried to run to the microphone at one point after he'd like gained a shit ton of weight because he thought it'd be dramatic. And by the time he gets there, he just cannot sing because he's that out of breath.
Wow.
Just from running down the stage, and not even a long way.
John Bon Jovi went to he was at the town next to mine. He was in Sayreville. And so I know people who know him. And like one of my fraternity brothers actually went to high school with him. And, he was like an egotistical douchebag even back then. So I actually ran into him in a club, Club Benet. Do you remember, Rob, do you remember Club Benet? It was in Morgan. Anyway, but yeah, he's a piece of work. Although he's one Star Wars claim to fame is the Star Wars Christmas album, which I'm sure you have, Kate. You got to have it. If you go and look the singer and the guy who's playing the guitar, go look at the name. It's John Bon Jovi.
Oh no, I've
John Bon
seen that
Jovi's
before.
house.
I've forgotten it, but yeah, that's familiar now.
John Bon Jovi's house where he grew up was on Robin Hood Lane, in Sayreville, and I know that. I like Bon Jovi. I'm a Bon Jovi fan. But I don't know that because I'm a fan. I know it because I don't remember the year, but on March 28th of some year, they gave his house away on MTV. March 28th is my birthday. So I remember, holy shit.
Cool.
I think it was like my 18th birthday too, I think. I don't know. I could be wrong, but yeah, they gave away his house on MTV.
Yeah, I remember that.
If we're going to talk about people who know celebrities, on Sundays and Tuesdays, I do a show with the Lavender Lady. And one of the things she brings up a lot is how she went to high school with Alan Ruck, the dude who played Cameron in Ferris Bueller. Yeah, so there's that. Personally, me, I think I've met, I want to say it's Jerry of Ben and Jerry. But about the only celebrities that came out of my town besides them and Bernie was the band Fish.
Oh, okay.
Hey, who here has met a celebrity? Like sports, music, movies?
Oh, I have.
Several.
Yeah, well, you've
I've
probably
met a little bit.
There's
Yeah.
that intro on my videos that I sometimes use with Richard Dawkins, like saying, yeah, so there's that.
Well, Paul, are you familiar with Vitamin C, the pop singer?
I have heard, but no, not really familiar.
She was my lab partner in chemistry. And let me see, Pam Patillo, who had she had a recurring role in the Cosby Show. One friend of mine who I used to play D&D with, he's a Pulitzer Prize winning author, Juno Diaz. Michael Romeo, who's basically the lead singer, guitarist of Symphony X. John DeServio, who's in Black Label Society and used to be with Lita Ford. Joe Taylor, who was bass player for Lita Ford for a while. There's this period in my high school, right around when I was there. There was 3 or 4 year period where we just have a fucking shit ton of people who got, and no major. Well, Brian, from Clerks. The guy who played Dante in Clerks.
Sure.
Yeah, we used to play D&D together.
Oh.
So here's I guess you would call him like a B actor, not like a headliner or anything, or like a big name star, but Scott DeFalco. He had a few movies that has done a few roles. He actually graduated same year as I did from my high school, which makes me the second most famous person from my high school.
Well, okay, a bunch of American Atheists ago, like 4 years ago, I think, I was in one of the room parties. It's the one that was in the penthouse, big, huge thing, a whole bunch of people there. I'm getting drunk, chatting with folks, mostly R and Raw. And then there's this this lower portion of the room where a bunch of people are sitting playing Magic the Gathering. Now, I hadn't played it since college, but I still remember the rules. And so I was watching them play, and someone goes, "Oh crap, I gotta go. Kate, take over." And I was like, okay. I sit down, and now the guy next to me to my right proceeds to destroy me. He's like, "Target acquired." Bam. And so I'm out of the game in about 5 rounds. What I did not realize is that not only was that the keynote speaker, but it was the kicker dude who got kicked off his NFL team for being an atheist, Chris Cluey. And I had no idea because I never watch football except the Super Bowl. But hey, dude's a total geekatron and a football player. Who knew that nerds and jocks could be the same people?
I met what's his name, Spike Lee, on a flight coming back from England. So that was cool.
Oh, along those lines, going to American Atheists from the airport, PZ Myers was with me in the shuttle, the airport shuttle. So there's that.
I was flirting with Sam Champion in a gay bar in New York City a few years ago.
Oh, cool.
Sam Champion.
Yeah, he's a newscaster.
Oh.
And I actually met PZ Myers recently. He did an online stream, and me and Steve Shives and a couple other people were in it. So that's how I got to meet PZ.
What about you guys on the right?
Okay, I got a couple of them. When my cousin plays in a couple local rock bands here. One of those bands before they became famous was the White Stripes, and he's still pretty good friends with Jack and Meg. Hockey-wise, I was actually coming on. Speaking of plane trips, I was on the same airplane, and we had a chance to speak to even before we went on the plane with. At the time, he played for the Detroit Red Wings, Darren McCarty, and that was pretty cool too.
If you know politics, Mark Shields, he used to be on the Capital Gang years ago. I met him in Allentown, Pennsylvania airport. I was heading out to Texas via I forget where, and our plane was delayed, so we were hanging in the boarding area, and I ended up talking to him for 45 minutes. Because what happens, he was originally behind me on line checking in, and it was right around just before the '96 election. So we were standing there, the line was backed up, and so he decided to semi-interview me. He was just trying to get a feel, so he asked my opinions about the upcoming election and all that, and then we ended up sitting next to each other in the boarding area.
I ran into Lou Dobbs in the grocery store because he lives in the same town I live in. He's not here a lot, apparently. He's always in New York City, but I think on weekends he's here. But anyway, I ran into Lou Dobbs in the grocery store, and I gave him the finger.
Nice.
about you,
Yeah,
Michael?
I keep kind of hoping I'll run into like Trump or Biden just so I can call them a name. I have to admit, I don't know, get the hell away from me, you lying piece of shit. I don't know. I had more creative ones in my head a while ago, and now I don't. But I have a lot I want to say to those people.
Mike?
Actually, I could probably all sum it up in just this.
Mike?
In the last 5 years, all the celebrities I've met, I can't talk about because I'm an addiction counselor. But prior to that, in 2011 and 2012, 2 successive birthdays. One I had Neil deGrasse Tyson at BJ's Brew Pub sitting at my birthday table. And then the next one I had Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Oh, cool.
And it's because I was involved in atheist groups and we were organizing things and things just happened to fall on my birthday. And so that was 2 years in a row that I had some really killer birthday guests. But a lot of atheist celebrities. I met a lot of pro wrestlers that are now on the top of their game, but that was way back in the day. The guy that's named Seth Rollins, he's been WWE champion a couple times. When I knew him, he was wrestling as Tyler Black, and he could do this killer backflip and land on someone while running forward. It was a weird thing, but he was a lot more gymnastic back then. Just a lot of professional wrestlers that I met.
Nice.
So today, and I was talking about this before we were live.
Yeah.
Today I had a text exchange with the governor of New Jersey, which was pretty cool. And I was talking to my campaign manager about it, and he was just like, "Oh my God, I can't believe that you had this exchange." I expected just a kind of a boilerplate, hey, good luck in the election kind of a thing from the governor, but we ended up having a more meaningful, short but meaningful exchange.
Nice.
And I was like, yeah, it was pretty cool, but that takes second place. The coolest thing was the email exchange I had with Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Oh, slick.
That was pretty cool. He and I exchanged quite a few emails about Managed Man and Charity. So, because I had invited him to take part, and he personally responded and said that he couldn't. So we ended up discussing that after a few emails. So that was pretty cool.
Oh, that's really cool.
Well,
I met Sebastian Bach from help me out, Rob. I'm so bad with remembering stuff these days. Skid Row.
Skid Row, yeah. Oh, I got to tell you about Bobby Ellsworth. Before I learned that he was a real shit, I was up at his house having a beer. I was like 17, and he gave me a beer, right? And I'm sitting on his deck, and he's on the phone with Rolling Stone magazine doing an interview. And when he gets off the phone, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm at this rock star's house. This is so cool. He first off, he gave me a CD, which was like, one of those things you can't buy is for promotional purposes, which was really cool. Somebody ended up stealing that when I lived in Patterson. But anyway, so we were talking and bullshitting and stuff, and he's just like, yeah, Sebastian Bach was just here last week. And I'm just like, I live right next door. How could you not tell me this?
Yeah.
He's like, Lars comes and hangs out every now and then. I'm like, call me.
Yeah.
Well, on Twitter, Mark Hamill turned me down for a 4-line part in my animation. Oh, well, he told me to contact his agent, and I was like, yeah, that's starting to sound like work. But that's like my one Mark Hamill encounter.
Well, I've never actually met in person, in person up close. Anybody particularly famous? I've been in close proximity to loads of famous people when I lived in California. I didn't meet. My parents got to shake hands with Lucille Ball when we were on tour at studios way back in the 70s. And that was pretty cool. And I loved Lucy Ball when I was a kid, right? So I thought it was pretty cool that she was a real person and she was right there and everything. And I was like, wow. But and when I went to see Queen, Kate, in 1982, a friend of mine who had seen Queen the tour before that said, hey, they go to this place called Enrico's on Broadway in San Francisco for dinner after the show. Maybe you'll get lucky. So we went to Enrico's on Broadway, and it's like midnight, and sure as fuck, in walks Brian May and Roger Taylor, the guitarist and drummer from Queen. but we were idiots and we still had our concert shirts on. So they took one look at us and it was like we didn't exist. And I'm like, oh, fuck. Because I would have loved to have gone up and just said something, anything, famous people I'd love to talk to. I've been in the same room as Robin Williams twice because he used to live in Pittsburgh. We were both in different lines for the concessions at a movie cinema, and it was 2 different cinemas. I've seen him in 2 different cinemas. I also seen him in his BMW driving across the Golden Gate Bridge, and we're waving and waving and waving, and he would not look at us. I mean, I can't just get that shit all the time, right? And I'm sure there's more. Oh, yeah. When I went to see Prince the last time at Ronnie Scott's in London, there was Kate Moss, who's like a British supermodel, like 10 feet away from me. And when I was waiting in the line, Stephen Fry come crashing through the line from the back. He was such a dick about it. There was like 500 people in line, and he went all the way from the back of the line and went, excuse me, all the way to the front of the line so you could cut the front of the line and get in at the VIP window. It was just, what the hell is that all about? And Stephen Fry's a big man. He's like 6'5", you know?
Yeah, that seems kind of dickish, but I do love him in Blackadder.
He's hilarious. He's a genius, really. But I think he's a bit full of himself as well, but so am I. So what the fuck can I say about it?
I'm full of myself except my skin. So
I met Weird Al actually in Pittston, Pennsylvania. I was leaving a club and he was coming in, and he had played a show up there. And so I was like, when he walked in, I was like the first person he ran into. So I was like, oh my God, Weird Al. And he shook my hand, and then everybody else noticed he was there, and he got mobbed. And I felt bad for him because you could see on his face, he was just like, all these people, you know.
Well, okay, maybe this is kind of silly, or maybe it's just quirky, but there have been times when I've tried to train myself. If I ever see a celebrity that I really like, don't gush. Just go, oh, hey, you. Yeah, I love your work. That was awesome. Great. Thanks. You know, just to not. Ugh. But if you want to talk about known celebrities, y'all know me, and I was on Tosh.0. Worship me. Bow before me, peasants. But, you know.
I met Aaron Gray and Gil Gerard at Gen Con, and I got to talk to both of them for like a half hour apiece. I talked to Ernie Hudson for about 45 minutes. Met Richard Hatch and got to talk to him for about an hour. I met Mark Singer and got to talk to Mark Singer for about an hour. Go to conventions, man. Like Gen Con, don't go to Origins, go to Gen Con, because they basically sit around and wait for you to come talk to them all day. So Mark Singer actually saw me. I was walking through, and he saw me, and I looked at him, and he waved me over, and I'm like, who, me? He's like, yeah, you, come on over, and we ended up just bullshitting for like an hour. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, I met Herb Jefferson too, twice actually. Andre, go ahead.
It just came to my mind listening to you guys that I take for granted and I never realize them. But the whole time that Becky Hale was the president of the American Humanist Association, I was having dinner at her house at least twice a month in Colorado Springs. And the church that I grew up in was very frequented by Donna Douglas, who was on the Beverly Hillbillies, but she was also a gospel singer. And I tend to put that in the back of my mind because I don't like any of the celebrities I met back in the day. I met the Newsboys and DC Talk and stuff like that. I don't want to, I met Eric Carmen, who was big in the Christian scene. I don't want to remember. I don't like that I met them.
Well, speaking of sci-fi people, I mean, okay, number one, I live right in San Diego. I should do Comic-Con someday. But I love the Orville. I absolutely love the Orville. And it turns out that there's a service out there where you can hire a celebrity to give someone a birthday message. And a friend of mine got, and I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, Adrienne Palicki, something like that. She plays Kelly Grayson, the second in command, the executive officer, whatever. And he got her to say happy birthday to me on this video. I still have it on my hard drive. I'm not supposed to broadcast it, so I'm not showing it to you, but it was still pretty cool. And I was like, how did you get this? And he tells me about the service. I was like, oh, darn it. I was hoping you knew her, but still it was cool.
That reminds me. I've been followed by two famous people. One of them is actually famous, and one of them is semi-famous on Twitter. I mean, back in the day when the Krasenstein brothers were a thing on Twitter, I had Ed Krasenstein following me, and at the time I thought, wow. But then, right out of the blue, I retweeted something from Morgan Fairchild, who I absolutely grew up idolizing, and I had a nonstop crush on for at least 40 years, right? And that's at least. And she followed me. And we've had conversations on Twitter several times. And one of the things that Morgan Fairchild does, and this is possibly a little diversion, there's a website, they might have been just talking about this, but maybe didn't know the business. It's a website called cameo.com. And there's like all these famous people, sports people, music people.
That's it.
And you can pay them, different artists have different prices. I mean, like the guy who's the lead singer for Sleeping with Sirens, you can get him to do 60 seconds for $25. Morgan Fairchild to do like 30 seconds or 60 seconds or whatever it is for $100. Nice. But some of them are like $500, $600, whatever. A lot of the rappers, for example, will charge a lot of money.
Well, we know what to get Paul for his birthday.
Right. Well, it's really funny you should say that, because my best friend growing up, he used to have a poster of Morgan Fairchild on his bedroom wall when we were teenagers. And I'm totally going to buy a Morgan Fairchild. His birthday's coming up on end of November, so I'm totally.
My wife, Morgan Fairchild.
If we're going to talk about knowing celebrities, do authors count?
I would think so.
Okay, in that case, Stephen Bruce, who wrote the Vlad Telltos series, amazing series, you should totally read it. He's a Facebook friend, and we've had more than a few chats. And then, oh gosh, who's the other one? I'll remember later. But there's someone like Robbie Rist is the one I mentioned before, who played Cousin Oliver from the Brady Bunch. He and I have chatted a fair bit. So, that sort of thing. I have a few of those as Facebook friends.
Matthew O'Neill.
I remember Matt O'Neill.
Yeah.
Famous.
He's an author and a songwriter.
I didn't know that. Hey, did you know that Fiki Snucker is an author as well? She's written a novel.
Oh, cool.
Actually, what's the guy's name? Judd Winnick, who used to be on The Real World, and he's also like a comic book writer and all that stuff. We've been Facebook friends for years.
The only person who's ever followed me that was any kind of famous was on Google Plus. Remember, I don't know if you know the comedian Doug Benson.
Oh yeah, I know who he is.
Yeah, I was totally shocked one day. I get a notification, and I'm thinking, oh, it's just somebody with the same name. And then I go and look and say, oh, well, maybe it's not his official account. And like, holy shit, it really is. Like, wow, Doug Benson follows my Google Plus, because I used to, when I was make my YouTube videos, I would put them out on Google Plus as well. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I've had a few celebrities that the official ones who have followed me too, and when I've seen it, it's like, whoa, now how, who? It's pretty cool, actually.
I have a few. I've got a few of the on Twitter. I got a few accounts with blue check marks. A couple of them are porn stars that follow me.
Interesting. I was Facebook friends with Marsha Warfield for a while. We had a number of interactions, but I kind of got annoyed with her after a while. But from sci-fi, I met Andrea. One day I met Andreas Katsoulis, Richard Biggs, Richard Biggs, Jason Carter, Julie Caitlin Brown, and Rowan Atkins Dowd.
Wow.
Right. One thing that sucks is when there's a celebrity you really like, and then you discover that they are
a prick.
Yeah, like Bruce Boxleitner. I love Tron and I love Babylon 5, but him and what's his face, Discount Bruce Willis, Jerry Doyle. And one of the telepaths, not Lita Alexander, the other one. They're all like rabid right wingers, and I'm like, fuck, damn it! Yeah. Now I'll feel icky every time I watch you.
Yeah, Andrea Thompson.
Smashing Pumpkins.
Well, actually, Richard Biggs was kind of a jerk to me. I mean, just like you said, you don't want to bombard them and all this. So I was very respectful. I spent like 3 or 4 minutes just getting autographs and saying thanks and blah blah blah. I'd asked Richard Biggs if he had a favorite Babylon 5 moment. It was like getting a paycheck. I'm like, yeah, that's a prick answer. So then I leave. I hang out with other people. I don't waste this time. And then I decide there was a picture that they had that I decided I wanted to get that I hadn't bought earlier. So I come back over, and mind you, when I left, there was this couple that was hanging with him. I did other shit for like an hour, and I came back, and they were still there, like monopolizing his time. So you'd think if he was pissed at anybody, it would be at them. He sees me coming, and he rolled his eyes. I'm like, what the fuck was that about? You know? I literally hung out for like 2 minutes to getting an autograph, and he was like, oh, this fucking guy. I'm like, all right, fuck you. Dude.
Okay, you ever see the movie Willow?
No.
Yeah.
Okay, dude who plays Willow's son, Mark Vandebrake, is like a producer or something for the Atheist Experience. I met him at one of the American Atheists, the one that was in Austin, and we chatted for a while. He gave me a copy of his book. Really nice guy, like you wouldn't believe.
Cool.
That just reminds me as well. I met Rick Wakeman, who's the keyboard player for Yes, off and on over the years, and obviously had a massive solo career as well. And we went to see his solo show in Bournemouth when I lived in the UK, and that's one of the few times I've ever had front row seats. And we were literally in the very middle of the front row. We couldn't have had better seats. And afterwards, my wife literally had the baby the next day. She was like heavily pregnant. And, I pointed to the hump and I said to Rick, Rick, that's partly your fault. And he kicks his feet back on the desk. He's like, all right, let's hear it. So I told him the story, right, which I'm not going to regale us all here with. But I mean, basically, long story short, I met my wife when I was on the radio as a DJ, and she called me up to request a Yes song. Boom. That's the shortest possible version.
Nice.
So yeah, and but he was like the nicest guy in the world. And Rick Wakeman, he used to be an alcoholic. He had a heart attack when he was 26 years old, from drinking too much.
Damn.
And he's been sober ever since then. But yeah, super nice, really great sense of humor. And he used to tell during the concert, we wouldn't just play the music. He'd tell these rock and roll stories. Like I'll repeat one of these stories since we're talking about music. So Led Zeppelin was playing in Seattle, right? And they completely trashed the whole floor of the hotel. And or the hotel room or whatever. And so Peter Grant, who was the manager for Led Zeppelin, goes down to the lobby to pay for the hotel room. And he said, how much is the hotel room? And he said, it's like $2,500 for the hotel room. Plus your guys did $5,000 worth of damage. And the guy behind the counter goes, it's all right for you, isn't it? You guys can just like do whatever you want. You don't have to worry about the consequences. For you, it's just bam, 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 money, pay, gone. You don't have to think about people behind who have to, clean up after your mess or anything like that. And Peter Grant goes, how much does it cost to totally trash a room? He says, I don't know, about $2,500. He goes, bam, 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 bam. Here you go. Have a room on us.
Nice. That's like asshole and cool at the same time.
Green Machine. I saw some Green Machine said, can't say for anybody else, but when I saw Andreas Katoulis, he was very gracious. So I would doubt that he was bad with his fans.
Actually, I don't know why I didn't mention this before, but a long ass time ago, we're talking like 2001, 2002 here, I did actually get to meet Marie Fredriksson and Per Gessle from Roxette. I had to win a radio contest to actually get to go to the concert in the first place because they never played the United States after about 1992 or so, which pissed me off because they are my favorite band. But what you gonna do? The U.S. said, yeah, but the rest of the world said, yay. So, I mean, whatever. But they did a signing afterward, and I got to very briefly at least tell them what their music meant to me. So that was good.
Hey, Kate, like you said a minute ago, well, you all know me, and that's kind of true. I mean, what's your most viewed video you've made?
Actually, it's the one about stormtroopers and why they aren't actually bad shots. Seriously. It's kind of embarrassing because when I look at other YouTube atheists and the views they get on their videos, the fact that that one only got 30,000 views after like a decade feels really shitty. I could go on this whole rant about how I thought I deserved better success as a YouTube atheist, but whatever, because I am transitioning my channel to animation only now. So whatever. Sour grapes
have always had a relatively consistent number of views, haven't they? I mean, they don't really waver up and down too much, do they?
Not much. It's usually within say 2,300 views to about 3,500 views, give or take. Yeah. Unfortunately, that's about 1/10 of my subscriber numbers. I don't know what that's about.
The way YouTube works nowadays, it doesn't seem to matter if I put out a video, even if it's been a while, and so you might think, oh, people go, oh, hey, there's one, I'll click it because he hasn't made a video for ages or whatever, and it doesn't matter what the title is, it's not going to get more than sort of 400 views unless it's like when I posted that when I went to a protest in London, and it was a counter protest, and so the guys from the main protest came down to our counter protest to try to riot, and I posted that video. And of course, those guys got a hold of it, and so they passed it around amongst themselves, and that video got like 13 or 14,000 views in the space of like a few weeks. Which for me, that most of my videos get 200 to 300 views. So
most I ever got on one video was 7,000, just around low 7,000, and it was a video I did. It was like the day after like the 2012 apocalypse didn't happen, and so the video was called "Where Is Your Messiah Now?" And that one caught on for some reason. But then the next highest video, though, was only like the low 4s. And that was basically because Cavi actually promoted it for me because he owed me something for something I did for him. So he promoted a video for me. And then after that, it was like 2,200. And then it goes down precipitously after that. But the thing is, in my early days, though, like generally speaking, you're usually happy. Back then, you were happy if you get like half your subscribers to view the video. I was always doing like 2 to 3 times my subscriber numbers and views, and occasionally up to 7 times. But then it's like my subscriber numbers went up and my views went up and then peaked. And then my subscriber numbers kept going up and my views didn't go up.
My most viewed video was a video with no sound or I wasn't even in it. It was Penny running in the snow and had thousands and thousands of views. The description box had a written response to allegations that were made against me by Richard Coughlin. So,
well, actually, it turns out I'm wrong. The Stormtrooper video is my second most viewed. My actual most viewed video is called Objective/Subjective Once More with Feeling. It's like this 4.5-minute video about like the whole objective versus subjective morality and just the definitions of those words. April 3rd, 2010 is when that came out, and it has 49,736 views.
I don't even know. I haven't looked it up for such a long time, and I'm not going to change my window panes on my computer because it might crash. But I have 2 videos on my channel which I copied off a DVD from the TV show. It's a British comedy called Goodness Gracious Me, and it's a bunch of British Asians doing comedy. And one's called Ethnic Stereotyping, and the other one's called Ethnic Stereotyping Reversal. They're both hilarious, but they're not my product, and so I can't really claim those views. But the most viewed video I've put on my channel that I made was always my most viewed video until I put those Goodness Gracious Me videos on, and that's my video called How to Have Sex for Women Only. And that video, my channel was only tiny then, and it got like 1,500 views in 24 hours, and I couldn't, I was used to getting like 60 views back then or whatever. So, and it was my most video for years and years and years. But it's all in comedy, right? And you can't even really make videos like that anymore because the community just isn't the same. You know what I mean? You just don't have the same level of sort of, I want to say camaraderie, but I think that's even overstating it. But just a general acceptance that, hey, we're all laughing at the same people, so let's just chill together,
Okay. Here's the thing. Part of why I want to stop doing YouTube atheism videos is just because I'm sick of the backroom shit, the behind the scenes shit, because there's definitely drama. But what I've noticed is that now there seems to be 2 camps where it feels like here's the popular kids with a shit ton of subscribers and here's everyone else. And I don't know what it's like for the popular kids, but the nerds and the geeks all found each other and have this like mutual support thing. I mean, you should have seen when the pandemic came down and people were like, we have to move, we have to this, that, and the other thing. And there were like all these crowdfunding things going on. And it was like, I gave $200 to one guy because he had to move. And then he sent, actually, I still have it as a thank you. He sent me these, right? And I don't know. There's something really great about the folks who have fewer subscribers, we feel really close knit, almost like a family. It's wonderful. But then I look at some of the other folks, I'm not naming any names. I'm like, you guys are kind of pricks, you know. But hey, what you gonna do?
Yeah, lots of more. And I think too, there's a lot of people who, you know, they to get views, they just determine, hey, if I do this, that, and the other thing, I'll get views, whether they believe it or not. And so their content, the quality of their content went down while their audience went up.
Yeah, it's that whole numbers game thing where it's like when we were on Blog TV, you know, the same thing. There were those of us who got along. We had the small channels, and for me, I don't really care if I'm a big channel or not. I like to meet people, make friends. I see this on Twitch all the time too. It's like the ones with the biggest numbers, they have like the biggest egos sometimes, and if you try to interact with them, no, it doesn't happen. The smaller channels, more than likely you'll have that. And I'm into the smaller channel thing too.
Okay, I do want to say one thing, and I know this is kind of going to be an asshole thing that's been bugging me for ages. For many, many, many years, like right before my intro, I would go, let's do this, right? And I wasn't the only one to call out Jimmy Snow for starting his videos the same way. You know, I was like, wow, that sounds a little familiar. And granted, let's do this is kind of generic. A lot of people say it, but darn it, I was the atheist using it in every damn video. I think it qualifies as a catchphrase. Just saying.
Right. I mean, if someone else started ending their videos saying, may all your ups and downs be ups, I'd be fucking pissed.
Yeah. So, and I mean, it's a small thing, but it's part of why I started sort of pulling away from that part of the atheism community, just because I was like, ain't getting no respect here. I came up with something that was sort of like something I was known for. Someone else ganks it out from under me. And, you know, when I didn't confront him about it, but I did mention it. And he was like, so? And I was like, whatever, I want nothing to do with you. So
I don't know. I don't even know who that is. So
Jimmy Snow, Mr. Atheist.
Oh, okay. See, there's so few atheist channels that I still watch anymore, because so many people turned out to be pricks. So it's just kind of like, you know, the thing is that especially, you know, a lot of the channels, I mean, after a while, you know, people run out of, it's not that there's not things to say, but people tend to get in ruts and they tend to say a lot of the same things over and over again. Like some of the video, I mean, I've thought about going back and doing like a redux on some of my older videos and kind of do them better. But, you know, yeah, you don't want to be too repetitive. Otherwise, it's boring.
Mm-hmm. And Kate, for the record, I always thought that your like catchphrase was just saying.
Really? I mean, I do say that a lot, but yeah, and like Joe's saying here, I spent what 12, 13 years saying the same things over and over because theists never changed their arguments, and it has gotten old. I only kept up with it as long as I did for two reasons. One, because I always considered it activism. You know, and also, too, because I thought I'd lose all of my patrons if I tried to switch genres, subjects, whatever. Turns out the support was amazing. Like 3 people jumped ship and about 6 people replaced them. And everyone else was like, you do you. I look forward to your animations. I was like, holy shit. Again, with that support from the people who aren't the celebrity YouTube atheists, you know, everyone else is like just fucking amazing. It's great. I love it. So
I'm not surprised. Plus, you're doing something that's creative. So whoever that appeals to, and now you also have a broader audience because they're not all going to be atheists. It could be anybody.
That was part of my calculation. I was looking at, say, for example, the Cyanide and Happiness animations that they do sometimes. I was like, animated humor sells on YouTube. I'm hoping that some of what I have in mind as animated projects will bring me greater success than I got as an atheist.
Oh, that's right. I kind of wish when she, back, several years ago, I wish I had started doing, I thought about doing videos with my dogs. I really wish I had, because dog videos, doesn't matter how goofy the dog is. In fact, the goofier, the better. I could have been pulling in, 40, 50, 60,000 views with Blitzen videos, And particular, like, you know, she knew how to open up zippers. So I really wish I'd filmed it. You know, her like put treats in a zipped up bag and people watch her like open the damn thing up. I mean, that probably would get like 100,000 views. You know, but I didn't.
I'll tell you what, Kate, I got to give you a compliment because my significant other actually has to thank you because they ended up watching your videos, they actually got educated about atheism, and that they are no longer a Christian because of it. So when they found out I was on this panel, they're like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe it! I used to watch." I mean, they were going crazy. So I had got to sit for you, but I thought you had to hear that. So there's at least one. You got at least one there.
Well, I mean, it's funny how that happens from time to time, and I'm always a little weirded out is the wrong term. It just feels weirdly wrong to be treated like a celebrity.
Sure.
And that's why if I ever meet anyone who, like, at a convention recognizes me on the street or whatever, I always make sure to ask their username so I can connect the person I met to the person I see online. So that, it's kind of like why I was always putting bloopers on my videos to show people how perfect I'm not. Things like that is like, what was the thing where they had a dude who would ride on the chariot behind Caesar or something, keep telling him, "You're just a mortal dude, I'm trying to do that for myself, so I can remind myself not to get a big head. You know what I mean?
No, I know what you're talking. I know what you're talking about there because I actually have a couple of second cousins who actually they're pretty big locally. They were like local newscasters, traffic reporters, etc. here, and as well as in California. There's one, she was a weather person, and it's like they're just. I have that in my family. I mean, like I have a cousin who's had connections. He had a band called The Paybacks that was famous just for a short time nationally. But it's like they're like everyday people to me. So it's like if I encounter a celebrity, yeah, that's pretty cool. But I'm not the type to do that whole giggly eye and they do that whole sparkle kind of. You know what I'm talking about, right? It's like
sure.
To me, it's like it's just human beings. I just happen to have that kind of a cool connection. That's all.
Yeah. And that's
have any of you been recognized in your normal daily life from your YouTube channel?
Yes.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
People that there are some operators at one of my clients actually like, hey, and what happens? I made a video about something and I was on site and the guy mentioned something that had been in my recent video and I was like, oh shit. Actually,
I got recognized twice in London. Once I was on a bus with one of my friends, and this guy comes on. His YouTube name was AfroBoy10, right? And he came on.
Familiar.
He said, "You got that funk," and I'm like, "Yeah." And then I kept talking to my friend, and the penny dropped. I'm like, "Hang on a minute, how could you possibly know that?" And then another time in London, it was like the second time I went to the Brexit march. It was the time they had like 1-point-something million people marching. So I'm in the crowd of 1 million people, right? And again, I got spotted by 2 people who were together. Now, the thing that both of these events have in common is I had my rainbow jacket on. I didn't realize it, but it kind of became my trademark. And so yeah, and I don't think they would have recognized me without it.
That Fremont Solstice Parade I did when I was in Seattle with all the naked bicyclists?
Yeah.
I get recognized for that a fair bit.
I actually ended up running across a picture of you with all the body paint on. And I'm like, I've seen Kate naked.
Or, if you get famous enough online, someone somewhere has masturbated to you.
True, or they create an OnlyFans account.
I would be offended if no one's ever masturbated to me.
But
it's just creepy when they tell you that.
Yeah. Well, like when I met Erin Gray, I said you were the subject of many an adolescent fantasy, and then she was just like, she blushed, and then she's like, thanks.
Yeah. Well, but what we were speaking about before, like the effects that we've had as YouTubers, I've had more than one person tell me I've prevented their suicide.
Wow.
Because of my atheism videos.
That's cool.
I deconverted my own dad. A lot of people have said, "Did you deconvert from your parents' religion?" I'm like, turn that around.
Wow.
So
30
yeah,
years ago when I was a radio DJ, I had a girl call me
met-
up. She wanted me to play a particular song by Pink Floyd. I think it was Comfortably Numb. And I said, okay, I'll see if I can get around to that. And then she said, yeah, because I want to kill myself. And that's the song I want to play when I'm killing myself. And so I had to spend the next hour on the phone talking this girl out of killing herself.
Oh, wow.
Like apparently the day before, she had been at the shopping mall and she was making a fuss to her mom to come and get her. But her mom's like, I can't come. I've been drinking. And her mom went to get her at the mall and died on the way in a car. And so this guy was racked with guilt. And I managed to talk her out of it. And she wrote me, and I think I've got in my room in Kingston, I've got like a fan mail letter from her thanking me for talking her down.
Oh,
well, yeah.
That's amazing.
Why do people want to kill themselves to Pink Floyd so much? I mean, it's not the first person I've heard that from, you know what I mean?
You know, I've heard very little of Pink Floyd, but it kind of sounded like something to die to. What I heard, I mean, well, it sounded, what I heard was awfully dreary. Let's just put it that way.
Well, speaking of suicide, Paul, do you remember Northern Vox Media?
Who?
Northern Vox Media.
No.
He was a British kid. He was in his like early 20s. He was a friend of mine, and he actually reached out to me like about 2 weeks before he committed suicide, and I was trying to talk through it, but then I woke up one morning and I checked because I was worried about him because he was getting more and more erratic, and I got on and I saw he basically was left like a suicide note on Facebook, and I called him, and it was already too late.
Wow.
And I was so if I had woken up like an hour earlier, I might have been able to intervene, but.
Wow.
I had a project once where I had a whole bunch of different YouTubers answer a survey, and I compared their answers to each other. And one of those YouTubers, after I was in his house and was kind of creeped out myself, I learned actually wanted to kidnap and rape Rob. Yeah, and I was creeped out at his house myself. And luckily I wasn't the target of his affection. I'm a little bit more of a bear.
You never told me about this, and you never told me who it was, obviously, because you never told me about it. But I think I know. He's not the only one who is. Yeah. But he was obsessed. He was one of the ones that told me that he masturbates to my pictures.
486.
I was completely plastered. I remember the date. It was 10 years ago, October 23rd. I was completely plastered at a convention, a meetup in Washington, D.C. And this guy traveled from Texas to Washington, D.C. to try to rape me. I mean, that was his plan. And I was really drunk, and he picked me up and threw me over his shoulder and started walking out of the room. And Peach grabbed a hold of him. Yeah, that was really creepy. That's who you're talking about, right?
486. Yeah, he was an evil motherfucker.
Okay, when we're done with lockdown, I'm going back to a martial arts class. God damn it! I'm just saying. It'll go well with the learning Japanese.
Well, what's that, Mike?
You know how in Psycho there's the crazy mom that because she's crazy, her son's crazy. In that case, it was a blind mom who couldn't see what was going on in the house, and some of the things that I saw were just really strange. You know those plastic flaps you see before somebody goes into a freezer in like industrial settings? That was what was separating the kitchen from the living room, like flaps like that. And I was like, what the hell's going on here? But what made me not want to stay was actually I thought that the place was infested with fleas. There's like this little invisible force field that you'll feel around your ankles where like you feel like something might be jumping on your ankle and then jumping off. If a place is infested with fleas. And that's why I left. I was like, if I sit here I'm going to be infested with fleas.
Right. Yeah, he was an evil piece of shit.
He scared me. Yeah, I was legit afraid of him. He's a little nuts. And he followed all of my social media, like very, 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 very closely for years. Yeah, he was frightening.
Well, the thing was when we did the New York City meetup, he was like had implied he was going to come. I'm like, don't you fucking come, because you will be removed bodily and I will fucking destroy you.
Yeah, I have no doubt. I was literally in actual danger when it came to him.
Yeah.
Changing the subject slightly, Joe, you just said the words, "I will destroy you." Whatever happened to that YouTuber with the mask on called "I Will Destroy You"? Is he still around?
I never heard of him.
You never heard of him? Great big fangs and like a hairy head, and he was a vocal distortion thing, and he you never heard of him? Okay,
sounds fun.
Maybe I dreamt it. I don't know. Hey, Michael, are there any demonstrations that you know about before or after Election Day?
What was that? Didn't hear you.
In Denver, are there any demonstrations before or after Election Day that you know about?
I would hope not, because I'm all about protecting ourselves from the Rona, but I can't imagine that if the election goes the wrong way, that there won't be.
The wrong way.
Yeah, well, the wrong way in my opinion. But yeah, if things went the wrong way, we would see. All you'd have to do is go to the Capitol building, and you'd see a conga line style march where it would be never ending.
Right. You know how the media is like at pains to not really sort of really focus on how far ahead in the polls Biden is because of 2016 and everybody's ass scorched from 2016, even though the polls weren't wrong because Hillary had 3 million more votes. But I mean, like, I do find it a little bit annoying. I think it's kind of safe to say that it's more likely that Biden's going to win, assuming that.
Both all counted.
Assuming that
assuming that
some of the even more, forgive the word, conservative, not politically, but let's say cautiously or forgivingly, whatever. The best case scenario seems to have Trump required to win every battleground state to win.
Right.
Is what I saw. So, I mean, I don't like his chances, but actually I kind of do like his chances, if you see what I mean. I don't know. I like the chance. I like the odds against him.
Yeah.
In my opinion, win, lose, or draw, if we flip the Senate on his way out, even if he loses, I want to see a second impeachment, and I want to see it get voted on.
They'll never do it.
Just slam the door on his ass on the way out.
They'll never do it.
Well, that's the thing, because if he actually gets removed via the process, then he's ineligible to ever be president again, so he can't run in 2024.
Well, they don't seat the Senate and the House of Representatives for the newly elected senators until just after New Year's, and then it's like 2.5 weeks later the president's inaugurated. So that's a pretty tight window to push through an impeachment.
I've often wondered. Like,
I asked, push through an impeachment.
Yeah, they can do an impeachment whenever.
I asked
after he's gone. I mean, they could do it next March if they wanted to. You don't have to be in office.
I asked the question of some folks not too long ago of whether there has ever been a president who was thrown in jail for the shit they did while they were president. The answer is no. But there are so many presidents, even presidents alive right now, who so totally ought to be. I mean, hell, just Guantanamo alone. Never mind what, when Shrubya decided he was going to invade illegally and all that shit. Most of our presidents since, George W. Bush should probably be in The Hague for war crimes at this point, but it'll never happen. And Trump is probably not going to get in any trouble either. It seems like presidents are just immune from any kind of prosecution whatsoever.
This is just my opinion, Kate, but I think the reason that George Bush won't ever have to go to trial for war crimes is because if George Bush went, Barack Obama would also have to go.
I do not object.
Well, I'm not saying that's a bad thing or improper or whatever. But what I am saying is I see it, the familiar lionization. I mean, after Ronald Reagan was president, it didn't take long for his presidency to be sort of lionized in the popular mythical culture, whereas those of us who lived through it as adults know better, right? And I see the same thing happening with Obama right now. And as we've discussed in previous Breakfast Clubs, you know, on balance, I'm sort of pro-Obama, but it's like 51-49. I mean, there's not a lot in it for me, really, because a lot of the things that he didn't do, I really wanted him to do, and a lot of things he did, I didn't want him to do. So, but on balance, I approve. But my point is that he could just as easily be dragged in front of the Hague for war crimes, considering the drone war. In the final year of the Obama presidency, they admitted to dropping 16,000 bombs. And when you do the math, that's about 70 bombs a day. And you can't say that they've got that kind of intelligence operation where they're spotting 70 terrorists a day that must be murdered today. No, they don't.
I mean, they've killed a lot of civilians.
Well, that's exactly my point. They're killing civilians as well, and they don't seem to care. And since Trump became president, Trump said to stop collecting the death numbers and stop reporting them. You know, so you got to dig for that shit now.
Well, here's one.
Remember the double taps against first responders.
Well, here's the difference between Trump and all the other presidents, whatever horrible things they've done, is that the state of New York has a whole litany of state crimes that have nothing to do with the federal government that can't be pardoned by anyone in the federal government, and there's no political machinations from the federal level that can prevent New York from executing those. I mean, they've drafted up all the stuff already. They're ready to go. They got the prosecution. They've got all the dots, I's dotted and T's crossed. They're ready to go.
He could very well end up state pen.
See, that's how it should be. But I would be willing to stake a fair amount of money in Vegas that he will somehow be pardoned or somehow slide out of any kind of retribution is the wrong word. Let's just say justice. I think there's going to be some way he can snake out of it, much as we wish he wouldn't.
I don't think Governor Cuomo would pardon him.
No. Well, I'm just saying, whatever the method, I think there's some way that he's going to be given a mulligan. I swear. I would place a bet in Vegas on that.
He's going to flee. He's going to flee to a country without an extradition treaty.
Or he'll just hold up in Mar-a-Lago and fight it until he expires. You know what I mean? I mean, Trump's been under a lot of stress for the past 4 or 5 years, you know, and it can't be very easy on a man in his age bracket. So, you know, I think
and his poor physical health.
Yeah.
You know,
go ahead.
Okay. Well, you know what I've often wondered about is how many attempts there have been on presidents' lives that were never told about because the Secret Service just takes care of it and keeps it quiet. Because with some of the presidents we've had in the last couple of administrations, I'm shocked that nobody's made an attempt.
Well, I mean, the thing is, just like a month and a half, or maybe it was 2 months ago, the Secret Service shot a guy outside the White House. And at the time, they scurried the president off the stage in the middle of a coronavirus briefing, if you recall, or something like that. It was a press briefing anyway. And they scurried the president away because there was like a guy shot. And it turns out that the shooting was 2 blocks away from the White House. And the guy didn't actually have a gun, if memory serves me right. The cop just thought he had a gun.
There were a couple of attempts on Obama. Bill Clinton had a shit ton of attempps. There was a lot of people tried to off Clinton.
I've never, I guess I missed those news reports.
Yeah, a lot of them were basically kept quiet.
Ronald Reagan broke the curse of the zeros because from Abraham Lincoln onwards, up until Ronald Reagan, everybody who got elected in a year that ended in 0 died in office. Ronald Reagan got shot in the first year of being president, but he did not die.
Well, I have suspect that Joe Biden might, you know, I'm not sure that he's long for this world. I don't think anything will kill him that isn't his own internal systems, but I suspect that he might not last through his presidency.
He's a million.
And again, that's another reason why we talk about what Biden will do or not do. I think that I don't think he'll be there more than after the first 2 years of his term at most. I think he'll either quit or he'll die. Die. I don't think anyone's going to hurt him, but I think that I mean, he's really old.
Well, I mean, Trump's pretty old as well, and he's certainly more overweight and more out of shape than Joe Biden is. And here's something I want to ask you guys about Trump, right? I mean, do you think I lost my train of thought. Never mind. It'll come back.
I do. I think all the time. All the time.
I just stopped thinking right in the middle of a sentence, and that's not a good thing.
I'll say that I think that the attack that happened just yesterday with the tour bus that was on Biden, he's a former vice president, and he's from what I see about to become the president, and they're keeping it kind of on the down low how big this attack was. They had basically an ambush set for that bus. He had to cancel events because they had a giant ambush.
Yeah, he wasn't on the bus, thankfully.
He wasn't on the bus, though. But yeah, there was an ambush. They waited. There was many trucks with Trump signs. They were armed. They crashed into one of the staffers' cars. It was pretty serious. And I mean, the story has come out, but there's no hype about it. They're kind of keeping it quiet.
It'll disappear.
But that's the reason why I'm so sick and tired of right wingers like, oh, Antifa, we gotta worry about Antifa. I'm like, yeah, when Antifa is like jacking up Trump buses on the fucking highway, come talk to me.
Antifa drive Priuses.
Yeah.
Well, that was actually something I was kind of curious about. Is like, does anyone think that we might ever see that kind of behavior from the left? Yeah, it just seems like a right-wing tactic to me. Like I have a hard time picturing a Democrat organizing that kind of Mad Max attack rally.
Well, like we said last week, Kate, you weren't here, but basically, what I noted that when people on the left attack, when they commit any kind of violence, it's generally against property, because the whole idea is you're attacking the capital state, the basically the disproportionate nature, or in case of environmental terrorists, attacking the again the source of whatever's doing the environmental damage. But whereas the right wing attacks people, so the left attacks systems and the right attacks people.
There's a lot of left-wing activity in Denver with shouting down right-wing events, especially at the Civic Center downtown. Well, they'll have a counter event, and they'll use noise, but they're never going to be like physically attacking them from the get-go. That's just not.
One other thing that struck me watching that video clip of the Trump convoy, someone remind me what that whole thing was like a bunch of months ago with a Trump rally where everyone showed up with boats and they all ended up capsizing each other. For some reason, I was just reminded of that when I was watching those cars, and I wish the clip was longer to see whether or not they ended up like being their own worst enemies.
Yeah.
Someone needs to make America float again.
Well, it was great. It was Photoshopped, but somebody had taken a picture of one of the boats that sank, and they put the Trump campaign flags on it. And I'm like, yeah, that pretty much, that's pretty much this campaign. Or the other one I saw the other day, which was great. It was a truck that was crashed into a lake, and they put like the trunk, like I forget what they're called, but the lead vehicle, that's like when you're trying to lead other vehicles from behind them, like the chase vehicle.
Pace car?
Pace car, yeah.
I remember what I was going to say from before. So Trump caught coronavirus about a month ago.
Yes.
Yeah. And at the time, we talked about it, and at the time, I was particularly dubious as to whether or not it was real. And then there were some things that happened which made me think, yeah, maybe he had it. But the way he's been gallivanting all over the country, and you can't put irresponsible statements past Trump, of course, but I mean, the way he's been talking about like the doctors getting money for coronavirus, I mean, it's just a nonstop avalanche of worse and worse stuff that he says about it, and about how, hey, you know, I've had it, it's no big deal, blah, blah, blah. It's just so irresponsible. And so I'm just wondering, has anyone else changed their opinion? Are you dubious that he really had it, or do you still think he had it?
He didn't have it.
No, I'm convinced he did, and I'll tell you why. Because to admit that he had it would have hurt him right in the ego. It would have hurt him right in the image. He wants to be Captain Strong, you know, like.
But this is why I don't think
kicking ass guy. And
this is why I don't think he did. This is why I don't think he did.
That's why I think he like. Okay, here's the thing. I think it would be too devious of him. I think it would be giving him way too much credit to have him say, yeah, I had it, and then came out the other side. Because if he had that gear in his brain, I don't think he would have told people to not wear masks.
But
because
he would have
stepped up and said, I'm going to take care of this COVID shit like a boss. I'm going to be the superhero you need. But instead he tried to ignore it because he thought it would show weakness. I don't think he would ever admit to having coronavirus without actually having it.
I agree, Kate.
I agree.
Yeah, no, I mean, I did think that at first, but I think from when he was diagnosed and from when he was miraculously cured with such a short amount of time, and his attitude afterwards was, hey, you're just going to get it and get over it, see? Look how strong I am. I mean, he even publicly said, I had to catch it for you, so you could see it was nothing.
And the whole Superman
thing is,
which he didn't actually do, but you know, it speaks to the state of mind. I mean, I'm glad his staff talked him out of doing that stunt, because I think if he had ripped his shirt off and ripped open to see Superman, I think that would have proved it was a mockery, and they knew that. So in order to have some sense of plausible deniability that he was really sick, they just said, no, you can't do that because people will not take you seriously.
Well, you remember when he was hugging the flag that time on stage? I mean, it would have been that level of gaffery. But, I mean, again, I think that when he got corona, he knew there was nothing he could do about it, so he had to spin it. And that's why he was saying, I had to catch it. I had to catch it for you, et cetera, et cetera. But everyone knows that he got, like, the most cutting-edge drugs to get him over it. Everyone knows that. So, I mean, like, he will try to say, see, and you can come through it on the other side too, like I did, but he doesn't mention the I had the superior drugs that aren't available to you yet part. And so, again, total disingenuousness right there.
Especially that there's like 500,000 doses in existence in America of the remdesivir, and there's 300 million of us plus that are going to, you know, get it if we all just follow Trump's lead. There's not enough of that miracle cure for the rest of us.
Yeah. Well, and maybe it's just me, but it feels like winning 10 cents in the lottery for Trump to get COVID and then live. That was so disappointing.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, I mean, basically, remember, he got a level of treatment, a level of care that most of us will never see. He had like the best doctors, no expense was spared. He got the latest drugs. You know, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Secret that Trump doesn't give a fuck about anybody but himself. But what do you guys think about him stranding like 500 people in the freezing cold in Omaha, and then a day or so later having a whole bunch of people collapse from the heat in Florida? You know what I mean? In his rallies, and he's just like, he just doesn't care. Now, he obviously doesn't care about them getting COVID as well. And they've done studies now and shown that the infections are growing where he's touring.
He is the plague.
Yep, that's like in Michigan. I think that's one of the theories that I have is, well, he's been here in Michigan a lot. He's had his rallies. Most of the people not wearing masks. That's why we're getting numbers up here. We were fine until the rallies came here. That's always been there. I'm convinced.
I hope if Joe Biden wins that he has some sort of mask mandate implemented where if you're outside not wearing a mask, you get straight into the pokey.
It's especially bad when there are events in certain states that, you know, Trump isn't even at, but it's Trump themed. But there are people going from event to event, like with camper trailers, just going from event to event just to live it like they're following the Grateful Dead.
Well, I remember seeing the thing
Yeah, they're having like these rallies and things. Yep, I know what you're talking about.
Well, apparently, I remember seeing a thing a while back that, like because it's the Sturgis rally, were basically the annual thing, and almost no one's wearing masks. That they estimated because obviously for Sturgis like 55,000 people showed up, and then of course they traveled out elsewhere. They were talking about potentially over 200,000 people infected because of Sturgis.
Right.
Well, and that's another problem is we keep hearing about death rates, but no one mentions, these people came out the other side with permanent lung and heart damage, et cetera, et cetera. They don't bring that up. So people are like, well, look how few deaths we had or compared to number of cases. And it's like, that's not all the info, dude. That's not everything that's relevant.
Very true. But also, we also should look at just the case rate in general. Because again, they always we're like, oh, it's like the flu. Like, there's already like 6 or 7 times as many people have got COVID as get the flu every year. So it's like, so maybe the rate is low, but if everybody fucking gets it, it's gonna that's totally enormous.
There's a study. They linked 750 deaths to the Trump rallies.
Right.
Well, it also I lost what I was gonna say. Oops, never mind. I'll just be over here.
He was such good comic relief.
I was just going to say about the lockdown in Britain that's I just brought up. I can't see it now. Oh, yeah, from Shadow's Gonna Kill Ya. I just found out earlier today that Britain's entered another 1 month long lockdown, and it may or may not be extended. What do you guys think the likelihood or unlikelihood could be that there would be a lockdown from a standpoint of health necessity between November 3rd and January 20th?
I definitely would. I would bet on it because that's my mom and I have been talking about that, and we're thinking that probably after the election, maybe right after, that's going to happen here. Absolutely.
I doubt it. Honestly, I doubt it. I mean, unless it's state by state rather than federal. If it's federal, forget about it. Not going to happen. State by state, maybe.
Yeah. The one problem that assuming that Biden does win, the one tough part is it's questionable whether or not he has the authority to mandate the mask in all the states. What he can do is at federal facilities, anything where there's federal money, they can then say, hey, if you want to go in this facility, here's the rules. But they can't necessarily force states to implement it. However, there's other ways to put pressure on states, though. What they can do is put a policy that says, hey, that federal money that you love so much, we're not going to spend that federal money in your state unless you have a plan. It's kind of like why for years the 55 mile an hour speed limit lasted as long as it did, because it wasn't put for safety. It was done to actually save fuel. So what happened was a lot of states started getting rid of it. And then what the federal government did was said, okay, if you want to get your federal highway funds, you will maintain a 55 mile an hour speed limit. If you don't, you're going to lose half your funds. Eventually all the states said, fuck you, 55 is stupid. Let's stop.
See, I wonder about that, though, because a lot of the things that Trump has at least talked about trying to do is, we're not going to help the blue states. We're not going to help the states that personally slighted me kind of thing. So, I mean, I just...
It isn't really legal, but...
Well, but I mean, that's the thing is if Biden were to say, you want our money, you have to implement a mask law. I mean, that's great and all, but it almost sounds a little bit like the stuff Trump was trying to do with saying, I won't give you money for ideological reasons. And I know it's not as scummy. I know it's not, but it feels similar enough that part of me feels a little itchy about it.
I mean, that's something the federal government, because that's, you got to remember, those are due to the limitation of federal power. That's really the only thing they can do. But at least if they're doing it for, like you said, ideological reasons, as opposed to, hey, your state didn't vote for me, so fuck you. I mean, quite honest with you, I mean, you talk about personal reasons. I mean, I'm never going to be president, but I tell you, or in Congress, but I would tell you, after so many red states in Tornado Alley voted against Sandy relief funds, after we fucking fund them every fucking time their state blows away and they keep building back in the same goddamn place, I'd be inclined to say, you know what? And I would actually take their speeches where they turned down aid for Sandy, and I would read them verbatim and say, well, Natch, fuck you dudes, you're done. Because I'm sick and tired of floating them when they need it.
every single New Jersey resident when they voted against Sandy Relief, when those red states in Tornado Alley voted against, every single person in New Jersey was like staring at their televisions with their jaw on the floor. Yeah. It's just like, are you fucking serious?
Yeah.
We give you money every fucking time, every year.
And we're the biggest donor state. We get back like 50. It's now down to 51 cents for every federal dollar and every dollar in federal taxes our citizens contribute. We only get back 51 cents in federal spending. So we're the fucking biggest donors of anybody. So that's why I laugh. I've gotten arguments with people when they're saying, "Oh, well, people should live within their means," and they live in some fucking like Mississippi or Alabama that are like, get back 2 to 1. I'm like, yeah, why don't you get and stop sucking off my tax dollars? You shouldn't have any right even to say how it's spent if you're taking back twice what you put in.
Well, one of the things I was thinking about with like a federal mask mandate versus a state mask mandate, the thing is that the states that most need masks are the ones full of the gun-toting wall Martians going, "But my freedoms," and all of that. Those are the people who need to start wearing masks, as the rest of us have the sense to do it. But if we let it be up to the states, those specific states are going to say, hell no. So what do? I mean, if we want to get this virus under control, we got to get those people under control and get them to fucking wear masks. But they're not going to do it unless they're forced. So what do?
They won't do it still.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The only way to force them is to force their governments, because there's a limit to what the federal government can do legally. I mean, I mean, that's the thing. That's the thing. As much as I kind of feel like I hope that the Democrats now, if they win, will wield power the way the Republicans did, because they don't give a fuck, right or wrong, ethical. If it's within the law, if it's within their power to do it, they just fucking do it, and they don't give a shit. So I hope that the Democrats learn from that. You can't, forget bringing a knife to a gunfight. They bring a book to an artillery barrage. They think that the Republicans are playing by.
Well, and they keep trying to
agree that they got to. The Democrats, if the Democrats get majorities in both houses and the White House, they should jettison the idea of bipartisanship completely, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, Obama had a super majority, and look what he can do.
The whole platform has been about inclusivity and bringing in both sides to the table and trying to get everybody to get along around the table. And I can just see that even if, and this is what really pisses me off about the Democrats as currently configured in Congress, because even if they do get majorities in both houses, like they had back after Barack Obama got elected, did you get your universal health care? No. And I don't know.
And that's why I'm so fucking pissed off right now, because Obama said, "Oh yeah, I governed like an 80s Republican," and Joe Biden's his vice president, and now he's about to be our president. How do you think he's going to govern?
Yeah, the Obama really pissed me off with the whole healthcare thing, because it was just like every night the Republicans were, being sharing a TV screen with the talking heads and just saying stuff like, "Oh, he's a socialist and this socialist medicine and bringing social," and it's just like, dude, they're already calling you a socialist. You might as well do it.
Right.
Do it.
Right.
Well, I mean, the problem.
Right. If you're going to do the time, you may as well do the crime.
When you say socialism, all of the right wingers go, "Oh my gosh, what is it? Argentina, Brazil? I can't fucking remember and when we say no, Sweden. When we say no, Denmark, they go, "Yeah, but the other kind that scares us." It's like you can't reason with these people.
My sister in Florida, and unfortunately, she's
Venezuela. I can't remember.
Not going to be voting for a president because she can't support either candidate. She's going to vote with the rest of the ballot, but she's not going to vote for president. And this is the first time in her life, she's a veteran. This is the first time in her life she's ever not voted for president. And I said, well, if you can't vote for Trump, why can't you vote for Biden? And her reason was Kamala, and she's convinced that Kamala is a socialist.
And all the socialists are going, what?
No. This is an intelligent, strong woman, right? She's really smart. And I said to her, you have got to be kidding me. I wish they were socialists. I wish that. But that's not even in the playbook. That's not on the menu. That you got to wait for next year's phone book to get that.
Try explaining the crap Kamala Harris pulled with like not releasing prisoners when their time was up, not giving a guy who's on death row but is innocent a pardon, all of that stuff. And I look at her and go, that's a fucking socialist, my ass.
Well, she couldn't give pardons. That's not in her purview. It would be the governor of the state.
It's the governor
But
thing.
the point is the guy was proved innocent and he was still on death row and she wouldn't let him off it.
Because she doesn't have the power to do that. The only the government, if someone is convicted, the only way if they can't get a new trial or get the verdict overturned, the only way to get them loose is to have the governor of the state. And in some states now, in California, I'm fairly certain that they do have a pardon, but not in every state. In some states, the governor does not have a pardon power. Virginia, for instance. So basically, the only way then is to try to get somebody a new trial. So it's not within the AG's purview to do that. So. I mean, you're facing, if you want to blame her for stuff that she did, fine, but that's not something that she could do.
Okay, well, I'm not sure we're exactly talking about exactly the same thing, so I'm going to look it up. But it was a while ago, and my memory's crap after the seizures, but there was a thing where she was actively preventing the guy on death row from being let off of it. I mean, it may not be that she was going to give him a pardon or anything, but she was definitely saying, no, that guy's staying on death row.
Well, that wouldn't be in her power either.
It may not have been when she was a governor. That's part of the problem. It may have just been when she was a prosecutor. I don't know. I have to look it up. But there's something hinky about shit she did.
I've heard people make the claim, and I looked into it, and it was I found it to be unfounded based on the authority that she had in the offices that she held.
More horrible for Kate.
Here we go. Got it. Got it. Right here. Harris's Attorney General office did block DNA testing that some legal observers believe could have helped overturn the murder conviction of a death row inmate who has insisted he was framed. Harris opposed efforts by lawyers for Kevin Cooper, a death row inmate from San Bernardino County, to get new DNA testing. In 2018, following a New York Times investigation into the case, Harris said she was wrong and called for further testing. Okay, but still, I mean, she was actively against giving this guy a chance.
Okay, fair enough. I'll give you that.
I mean, that alone is a deal breaker for me, but there's all the the cheap slave labor that she wouldn't let have parole because she was like, no, we got our prisoners here and they're doing all this work for us. We can't let the economy have this hit by not having that cheap labor anymore. She's slime. She's scum.
So in her 60 Minutes interview, they asked her flat out if she was a socialist or a progressive, and she laughed it off. No, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they were trying to hit her with well, these groups say that you're the most liberal senator, ever, more liberal than Bernie Sanders, and they tried to paint her that way, but she was shrugging it off.
Well, because she's not. That's the whole thing. I mean, that's why I find it hilarious that it's it doesn't matter. I mean, Joe Biden could be to the right of Ronald Reagan, and they'd be like, he's a socialist.
Well, they played a clip from the debate where she is holding Biden's feet to the fire on something. I think it might have been healthcare. I'm not sure. And they said, well, why are you his VP now if you disagree with him so vehemently? And she starts laughing and she just goes, it was a debate. Somehow when the debate is over, everyone gets a mulligan or something. All is forgiven, and now we're ideologically aligned where before we weren't, just because I wanted to grab power. I mean, that was the vibe she was giving off. She kept laughing and laughing. They kept trying to press her on it. She's like, it was a debate. Somehow
political alliances are not a marriage. You know what I mean? They're not based on love. They're based on mutual advantage.
Mm-hmm.
And people in Congress and the Senate and the House, they'll fiercely debate from their seats during the course of their day in business, and they'll get sometimes downright nasty. And then they'll all go to the bar together.
Yeah. Now one thing that happens less than used to, there used to be across the aisle of that, and people in the House and Senate would go on retreats together with their families, left, right, center. but that doesn't happen so much anymore. There's definitely a partisan divide on the camaraderie because, for obvious reasons.
What's more to the partisanship? I mean, because if we do what we talked about 2 hours ago about electing more people who were progressively minded to take over the Democratic Party from the bottom up through the Congress, was that
Smarties?
Of course. But if you do that, isn't there the risk of this further polarization? I mean, I'm not a big fan of bipartisanship. I don't think. I think I don't think it means what they tell us it means. It doesn't mean cooperation. Most of the time, it means capitulation. So I'm not a fan.
Oh, completely agreed. Although I am in favor of lesbian partisanship. Bipartisanship, whatever, but lesbian, I'll just be over here.
Yeah. I mean,
So, ideally, if we do away with this bipartisanship, one of these parties dies. And I'm hoping it's the more conservative one. And then the Democratic Party would become the more conservative party. And we would get a new party based on the Greens and the Justice Democrats and all these young kids that are voting right now in this election. They would start a new party that would pull us further that way, the Kate way.
Oh, okay. Personally, I'm kind of hoping
if we hold the lion's share of the power, just let the conservatives die off.
And that's been my thing, about trying to get people to vote blue across the ticket for now. Is it basically, look, I'd love to have the debate be between the centrists and moderates and the liberals and the progressives. That's a cool debate because each one of them is going to be right and wrong at different times. But as long as there's like Louis Gohmert to fucking contend with, we're not going to ever get to fixing the environment and fixing the healthcare system and all that. You have these wing nuts that are just way the fuck out there and represent way too much. They represent like 31% of the people, but they have 55% of the Congress, and we got to do something about that.
Get rid of the Electoral College.
So okay, let me cut you guys off so I can talk to somebody in the chat real quick. So Shadow, Smarties, yes, we have them in the States. Not only do we have them in the States, it's a US-based company. And not only is it a US-based company, it is they're manufactured in the same town that Serious Minds lives in.
Here's the thing, that's true and also not true, because there's a candy of the same name over in the UK that's not the same thing. So they probably are looking at that and going, oh, we have Smarties and you're not talking to each other because you don't realize that they're different.
Yeah, in Britain, Smarties are like M&Ms kind of.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Oh, no, this is so much better than that.
Yeah. The ones here are basically like little pills of sugar.
And the funny thing is, I learned that like a couple of months ago. I, went my whole life never knowing that. Now I know it. And hey, here's a chance to pull that fact out of my brain. I mean, it feels a little coinky dinky, but whatever.
Yeah, now something the Phoenix writer said, I think, and this is true. Basically, what the Lincoln Project's very interesting because you have like more traditional conservative Republicans, the old style, and those were guys. Okay, I disagree with them most of the time, but they were humans that taught, could read and were capable, and they're basically said, hey, look, we're sick and tired of the Trumpists having taken over the party, and they're in it to basically. Their thing is, we're going to basically fight against the Trumpists until they're gone, until they're marginalized. And so their thing right now is vote blue until we kill off what's left of the Republican Party and remake it, what they want to do. Now, I want to die completely, but for, the whole strange bedfellows things, the enemy is my friend. So for now, I'll join with the Lincoln people and let them crush the Trumpists and hopefully have a better better result later on.
Okay, so let's just play a thought experiment. Supposing that you had, 3 wishes, right? And you decided to make one of those wishes to fix the Republican Party. What does it look like?
In flames.
Define fix even. I mean, because I don't think it's necessarily.
Okay, I mean, because any healthy political system needs at least 2 options, right? At least 2 viable options to run the government. And if the Republican Party completely disintegrates, which it might do, the Democrats, like when FDR became president, the country elected a Democrat president 5 times in a row. FDR 4 times, and then Truman after that. So they gave the Republicans a hell of a bloody nose after the last time they crashed the economy and fucked everything up, years ago. So, and that could happen again. The Republicans are, I hope, in for a bloodbath on Tuesday. And if it does manifest itself, the after effects that reverberate within the Republican Party is not going to be pretty.
One of the things I would like to see of a future Republican Party, because they will reform, regroup in some way. I would like to see them remove the church from policy making.
Yeah, I think. I'm picturing. I would like to see the Republican Party more on par with what they were pre-1960. And the thing is, a lot of people don't realize this, is that even as late as the early 80s, there were still some liberal Republicans.
Right.
Most people don't remember that or weren't alive for it, but there were, like Bob Packwood, who unfortunately disgraced himself by being, he was like one of the most feminist Republicans going, but he was also a lech and was like macking on his the women in his office, which is ironic and unfortunate. But they definitely were a different party at one time. Now I would kind of, I don't expect that's going to ever happen again, but I would kind of like to see a Republican Party that actually matches their rhetoric, and their rhetoric being, strong, the whole thing, strong on defense, strong on personal liberty, and caring about fiscal responsibility. We need those things. Those are important things. So I just don't want them to be religious fanatics that want to take away everyone. It's right. Because they don't actually believe in any of those things. They just say them and they don't actually believe in them.
Okay, I'm gonna take this and run with it in a slightly different direction. You said 3 wishes. My first wish will be that every wish, including this one, will be granted as I intend without consequences that I would find unpleasant. Because let's face it, you can end up in one of those monkey paw situations where you make a wish and it sounds great, but you end up in hell by the end of it. So that's the wish number 1. Wish number 2 is that the Republicans, not just the party, but the voters as well, become far more left-wing than the Democrats. So now we have 2 choices. None of them are shitty.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a wish. It's magic. I can do what the fuck I want with it.
That's true. That's true. I mean, the thing about it is, like I said, the sad part about it is a lot of the things that the left wants to do are good, even from a right-wing perspective. And I keep hammering on it. The whole thing about the universal health care is good, period. Left, right, and center is good, period. It makes total sense. Because everybody needs it to some degree. We're all going to get sick. None of us knows how sick we're going to get. So it makes sense to have a system that is as the lowest cost possible with the best outcomes possible, and to do that in a way that has the least amount of regulation, while maintaining safety and all that. So that's good for everybody. But it's basically what's happened with the right wing. It's very much of like whatever the left wants, they're against it. We can literally say, "Hey, let's breathe air," and they'd think about it like, "Breathe air? I don't know. That's like a communist plot."
Perfect example is Obamacare was originally Mitt Romney care, and when Obama tried to pass that, the Republicans were like, "Nah, it's just crazy pants."
It's socialist, even though it was like a right-wing think tank that came up with it in the first place.
I mean, I hate to boil everything down to racism, but I mean, I honestly feel that there was a large sentiment within the GOP, within Congress, who decided they couldn't let Obama have anything.
Yes.
I've never seen so much obstructionism from any Congress until Mitch McConnell got to where he is now. But I mean, obstruction, these GOP people in Congress right now, in both houses, frankly, they don't want government to work.
Right.
Oh, that's their goal.
Yeah, they don't believe in government,
GOP,
and they go out of their way to prove that it's bad.
I mean, yeah. Let's go down the list. Who keeps wanting to shut down the government? The GOP always does. When they want to basically throw their toys out of the pram, they threaten to shut down the government. What party is most responsible for gerrymandering? The GOP, right? What party is most responsible for all this voter suppression? Now, granted, there's voter suppression in blue states as well. If you have to wait more than 3 hours in line, I call that voter suppression. They should have had more voting booths for you, especially when you're voting early. But I mean, there's way more efforts to nullify the vote by the GOP going on in this election cycle than I've ever seen combined over the rest of my life. I mean, all the shenanigans going on in Texas and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin about whether you can count votes that have been posted or not posted and how many days. I mean, in California, it's in the law that they have 17 days to receive your vote as long as it was postmarked by election day. And what he's going to do is he's going to argue that, the election is on the 3rd of November. And so any ballots received after that don't count because the election was on the 3rd. That's going to be their argument.
It's going to be their argument, but I mean, I don't.
That for decades. So why should we start now?
Right.
I don't think they could have a lot of success with it, maybe because also the law, as far as when the election is basically over, when it's decided, is when it's certified, and it's not certified until in December.
Right.
I know that there's been a lot of shenanigans with fake voting boxes where you take your mail-in ballot and things like that. But me personally, here in Southern California, I walked my ballot to the library. There was someone there. I said, "Hey, did I do everything right?" She said, "Yeah, you signed it, date it, go ahead." There you go.
Potentially both, Shadow. And that's the thing. That's why whenever someone talks to me too about I don't hear it as often, but when you hear someone said, "Oh, voting's not important," I'm like, if voting wasn't important, then one party wouldn't spend so much time, effort, and money to try to prevent you from doing it. That's the key right there. So anytime I run into these cynics that are like, "Oh, voting is a matter of just shuffling papers," like bullshit. They wouldn't waste all the effort to stop you if it didn't matter. They want, and I try to tell them that, you think you're above it, you think you're something brilliant. No, you've been co-opted. They want you to believe that, so they didn't have to spend any time on suppressing your vote because you've already suppressed yourself. But the another thing too, you talk even about gerrymandering. Now, when the Democrats gerrymander, and because they do, sometimes I gotta be straight up. But what's interesting about it is generally to create a chance for a marginalized community to actually have a representative from their community. So I remember there was one person that, from right winger, that they thought this was a big gotcha. So there was these 2 districts in Chicago. And if you look at just on the face, if you don't look at the demographics, you just look at the districts, there's one district that's like a C and the other one is like inside the other. And it's really weird. You think, oh my God, this is this horrible thing. Well, what they've done, you realize when you look at the demographics, is that the one district, both districts are actually heavily blue. One district is predominantly Hispanic and the other one is predominantly Black. And they did that on purpose so that each community could end up having, so this way, instead of having it divisive where you end up with Black versus Latino fighting over, oh, well, that Black guy doesn't represent me or that Latino guy doesn't represent me. They said, okay, since it's going to be blue anyway, let's split this district up along tribal lines, if you will, and make it so people can be better represented. And that's how the left gerrymanders.
I'd love to see the debate stage between whatever the Republican opponent was, like to have the dude actually up there going, "He's trying to help you. Vote for me instead. He wants you to have a representative. You gotta vote for me." Because that seems to be the way they argue is, oh my gosh, this person wants you to have health care and you can't have that. It's just crazy.
Look at some of the things that Trump has said lately. Talk about they want to count all the votes. We can't have all these votes counted. And he also said, talking about Joe Biden, he's going to listen to the scientists.
We can't have mail-in voting because a Republican will never win again if we do, kind of thing.
Good, that's the point. Yay!
But I mean, you listen to what's behind what he's saying. He's basically saying, "Look, we have to cheat to win."
Right, and the classic.
Hold on, let me.
The classic. The subtone to that as well is like basically he's admitting out loud. He said the quiet part out loud. We don't really want democracy.
Right.
That's not what they want. They don't want a democratic system. And that's like that guy from Utah who got the coronavirus said in a tweet. He said democracy is not the goal. Prosperity, liberty, and whatever else he said is the goal. And I'm like, oh, so as long as we're not starving and we feel free, it doesn't matter if we have a dictator. Is that the implication?
Right, exactly what the implication is. Well, that's the thing. I mean, anytime someone is running for a government position who says that government's the problem, that's someone you should be suspect of. I mean, like, because you're kind of like, I don't believe in government. I think government's bad, so put me in charge of it.
Well, I mean, I guess I kind of get it. They could say, look, government's bad, government sucks, put me in charge, and I'll hold it at bay. Like that I could see. I don't agree with it in any fashion, but I could see that being the logic behind it.
Sure, right. And the funny thing is they don't actually go that last bit, though. That's the funny part. If they said, hey, we're going to go in, and they kind of make it seem like they talk about cutting taxes. They don't ever talk about actually shrinking the government anymore. They used to. But it's because they don't actually shrink the government. They actually spend more. They just cut taxes and increase spending. So like Wesley Clark said in 2004, they talk about the tax and spend Democrats. Well, they're the tax and they're the don't tax and spend Republicans. They're the tax cut and spend and they spend actually more a lot of times. Al Franken did a great breakdown of like federal spending when Ronald Reagan was president and showed how Reagan was asking for bigger budgets than what Congress actually was allotting. And because he wanted to spend more than what the Democrats wanted to spend. And then he tried to blame the Democrats for overspending. It's like, well, no, when you double the military budget in the course of 3 years, and the worst of it is, if you look at the procurement numbers of tanks, planes, the whole deal, they actually dropped under Reagan. The first 3 years of deliveries during Reagan were actually purchased by Jimmy Carter. And then what happened is the price of all these weapon systems doubled and tripled in a very short period of time. Because when you start spending in a blank check and you're doing no oversight, and that's what pisses me off, because they always talk like about fiscal responsibility, and the fiscally responsible thing to do would be to audit these companies that you're buying your tanks and planes and stuff like that, and finding out where the money's going and how are you justifying this tripling of cost in a 2-year period.
Yeah, and at the same time, he was cutting the top marginal tax rate.
Right. And it's basically their argument that like, well, if you cut your salary, you'll have more money to spend at home. Yes. But the problem is a lot of right wing.
I think I'm going to wrap up the show. We're getting close to 4 hours there, and I'm sure I should go and give my partner some attention.
That's
so
cool.
yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I got down this rabbit hole about tattoos in the chat. So.
Fair enough. But listen, I want to thank you guys all for coming, especially since it was Halloween, and I'm sure all of us had much better things to do.
Dinner. Yeah, I need to eat dinner. It's like 8:45 and I'm starving my ass off.
Yeah, I really enjoy our get-togethers, man, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the after chat. I want to thank everybody who's been very active in the side chat as well, of course, and to all our regular viewers who choose not to chat as well. In the meantime, we will all see you next week. Well, maybe not all of us. You never know who's going to show up from 1 week to another.
Thanks for celebrating my birthday with me.
Yeah,
happy birthday, Joe.
Happy birthday, Joe.
Your continued mortal existence pleases me, pitiful earth creature.